Chapter 809. Get this straight. You're an actress, not a missy. Do you understand? I'm letting you in on account of your old man. That doesn't mean that I won't kick you out just because your old man is influential. If you don't act well, I'll still kick you out. With your performance, I can pick any of the extras in the group, and they'll act better than you. What kind of performance is this? Yun Shirshir, who was listening from the side, was utterly convinced by the director's scolding of Lu Jingtian. It was no wonder that the director was rumored to have a fiery temper and dared to speak his mind. It was rare to see a director like him nowadays. Jun Mo, who was listening from the side, was also frightened. This director's ability to scold others was not just for show. Seeing it with her own eyes, she was in awe. Among the directors nowadays, only he dared to scold an actress with a background. He announced an intermission, and the next scene would start at 7 p.m. It was a scene in the rain. The moment he left, Lu Jingtian covered her mouth and ran to the washroom. The moment she left, the extras burst into laughter. Yang Mi could not help covering her mouth and sniggering reservedly. Mu Shi, too, could not help laughing. This director is really beyond my expectations. His scolding made my liver tremble. I've never seen such a demonic side of him, either. That's you? I've seen it many times. He's restrained himself a lot now. In the past, when we were filming in his production team, we had to show 200% professionalism. Otherwise, we'd be asking for a scolding. Mushi laughed. Jun Mo said, Sure, it's your scene with Xingzi next. Do you want me to help you rehearse? Don't laugh at others now. When it's your turn, the director will scold you if you don't perform well. That's right, don't be smug now. If you don't act well, the director will scold you, too. There's no such thing as special treatment in front of the director. If you don't act well, you'll be scolded like Lu Jingtian, just now. Yun Shirshir's face revealed fear. You're making me panic. Jun Mo, you'd better rehearse your lines with me. Jun Mo ruffled her hair. Okay, little fool. Mu Shi, who was watching from the side, could not help but sigh. Jun Mo, your boyfriend power is so strong. I'm almost turned gay by you. Jun Mo raised her eyebrows. What do you mean? You're so handsome and gentle. I'm about to fall in love with you. Jun Mo blushed and was a little shy. Yun Shirshir rebuked. Mushi, you're so naughty. You know that our Jun Mo gets shy easily, yet you still tease her like this. Ha ha. In the afternoon, an uninvited guest came to the set. Yun Shirshir had just finished rehearsing with Jun Mo and went to buy a few boxes of water to distribute to the staff, as usual. She had just returned to the set when she saw a familiar face. Song Enya. Yun Shirshir was stunned. Why was she here? She saw Song Enya sitting beside Lu Jingtian, who seemed to have been crying for a long time. Song Enya gently patted her back as if to comfort her. The two seemed to have a good relationship. Could it be that they were friends? Song Enya was here to visit the set. Indeed, birds of a feather flocked together. This saying made some sense. Seeing Yun Shirshir looking at Song Enya, Jun Mo looked over and recognized the latter at a glance. She was a little surprised to see Song Enya's gaze on Yun Shirshir. Shirshir, you know Song Enya? Chapter 810. Song Enya looked at Yun Shirshir as well. Suddenly, she lowered her head and exchanged a few words with Lu Jingtian. She did not know what they were talking about, but the latter turned to look at her with a pair of eyes that revealed a hint of contempt. Yun Shirshir held Jun Mo's arm and wanted to leave, but Song Enya walked over and blocked her path. Oh, I was wondering who it was. Turns out it's the shameless mistress. Song Enya whistled and looked at her with disdain. Lu Jingtian did not step forward, perhaps due to the fact that they were on set. With Yen Bingqing as an example, she did not dare to find trouble with Yun Shirshir on set. Song Enya, on the other hand, did not need to be wary of anything. Yun Shirshir glanced at her expressionlessly. She could not be bothered to talk nonsense with her, and walked around her to leave. Song Enya took a step forward and blocked her path, not letting her go. "What's wrong? Are you hiding from me? Are you feeling guilty? A tree needs its bark, and a man needs his face. Since you dare to be a third party, don't feel guilty. Do you still want your face after doing such a despicable thing?" Song Enya's words were extremely provocative. It was clear that she wanted to settle old scores with Yun Shirshir. Song Enya's voice was so loud and high-pitched that almost everyone on set could hear what she was saying. However, in the huge set, almost no one except Yang Mi knew her. As the mayor's daughter and a socialite in the upper-class society, Yang Mi naturally knew who she was. It was just that celebrities like Li Jiuxian, who had just debuted, naturally did not know who the mayor's daughter was. However, when they heard the words mistress and despicable business coming out of Song Enya's mouth, they could not help exchanging glances with each other. Mistress? Yun Shirshir is a third party? Yang Mi frowned slightly. She did not know what was going on, but she knew that Song Enya was clearly looking for trouble with Yun Shirshir. It can't be, right? Who's this woman? I don't know her, but she's so pretty. She's even prettier than Lu Jingtian. She doesn't look like a celebrity. Look at her noble aura and arrogant attitude. She looks like a rich missy. Yes, she's more elegant and beautiful than Lu Jingtian's. What does she mean by Yun Shirshir being a mistress? Is Yun Shirshir's a third party? How's that possible? I don't believe it. How can Shirshir be a third party? Everyone could not help but whisper behind the scenes. June Mo, who was listening from the side, frowned. Just as she was about to step in, Yun Shirshir reached out to stop her. She then met Song Enya's provocative gaze, but her face remained calm and collected. "Miss Song, you're sick, and you're seriously sick. You, S-Knots." She's eyes. Song Enya's eyes turned sharp. "How dare you say that I'm crazy? What right do you have to talk to me like that? Oh my, you see, your princess syndrome is quite serious. It's terminal." Yun Shirshir's lips curled into a mocking smile, neither servile nor overbearing. "Yun Shirshir, I didn't expect you to be so shameless. You seduced a married man, and even broke into someone else's family. You're still not repenting." Chapter 8:11. She had a child out of wedlock. As soon as Song Enya finished speaking, there was an uproar on set. Everyone looked at Song Enya, then at Yun Shirshir, and found it hard to believe Yun Shirshir had an illegitimate child. She was a third party. Such explosive news. It must be fake, right? Yun Shirshir did not seem to be such an evil woman. However, this woman did not seem to be spouting nonsense either. Her words were clear and logical, and it did not seem like she was spouting nonsense. Could it be that Yun Shirshir really had some unspeakable gossip? It was not impossible. As a newcomer, she was blessed with unique resources and was so popular. Before the movie was even released, her limelight had already overshadowed Gu Xingzi's Heavenly King halo. It was indeed unbelievable. Could it be that, like what this woman said, she had stepped into a rich family and hooked up with a mysterious sugar daddy? After being in the entertainment industry for a long time, one would understand that there was no such thing as a groundless rumor. For a moment, everyone was talking about it, and countless suspicious gazes fell on Yun Shirshir. Yun Shirshir's face was calm as she looked at her calmly. June Mo, however, could not stand it anymore and said angrily, "Song Enya, you're not allowed to slander others like this. You said that Sure is a third party and that she had a child out of wedlock. Do you have any evidence? Song, Enya looked at her with disdain. What are you shouting for? Am I talking to you? An actress dares to put on airs in front of me. I don't know where she got the capital. Get lost. Junmo's handsome face was sullen. She took a step forward and was about to speak when Yun Shir stopped her. She did not want Junmo to get involved in this mess for her. Hence, she raised her head and said to her, Junmo, thank you for defending me, but this is a private matter between me and her. It's better that you don't interfere. Junmo looked at her with heartache and said unhappily, I can't stand it. Sure. What right does she have to slander you like this? There's no evidence. She's spreading rumors. She's too much. I'm spreading rumors? There's no evidence. Song, Enya sneered and mocked. Yun Sure, you're really good at acting. Look at how many people your innocent face has deceived. There are really people who think you're innocent and want to stand up for you. But what about the truth? Do you dare to say it? My words have no basis. I'm spreading rumors. I'm slandering you without any evidence. Hee. Not only are you good at acting, but you're also good at acting. Keep pretending. Do you also pretend to be a white lotus in front of Brother Mu to deceive him? Yun Sure, on the other hand, remained calm. However, there was a look of pity in her eyes as she looked at Song Enya as if the latter was a pitiful worm. Song Enya was hurt by her stare and bellowed, What kind of look is that? Yun Sure raised her eyebrows. I just feel that you're really pitiful. Song Enya was speechless for a moment, not understanding the meaning behind her words. What do you mean? Yun Sure took a step forward and whispered in her ear slowly, Even if you're angry out of humiliation, you can't change the fact that Mu Yaja is my man. The one who has no right to fight with him is you, understand? Song Enya was stunned. She then raised her hand high to slap her. Be *TCH, you're shameless. Junmo immediately reached out and shielded Yun Sure behind her. The slap that was aimed at her face did not land. Song Enya was enraged. She turned around to look, only to see Gu Xingze standing behind her and gripping her wrist tightly. A pair of handsome eyes filled with chilliness, but incomparably indifferently fell on her body. Chapter 8:12. Gu Xingze? What was the meaning of this? Why was he stopping her? Gu Xingze, what are you doing? Are you done fooling around? Gu Xingze pursed his lips impatiently, his handsome face cold. This is a film set. It's not a place for you to fool around. His grip on her wrist was so tight that it seemed as if he was going to break it. The part of her wrist that was tightly gripped by him suddenly lost its color and turned pale. No matter how hard she tried to break free, it was to no avail. She struggled for a while, but still could not break free. She could not help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. Gu Xingze, let go of me. Gu Xingze immediately let go of her. Caught off guard, she fell to the ground in a sorry state. She was wearing 7-centimeter high heels today, so when she fell to the ground, she felt a sharp pain in her ankle. It seemed that she had sprained it. Feeling wronged and resentful, she raised her head to look at Gu Xingze in displeasure. Gu Xingze lowered his head and looked at her coldly. His expression was frosty, and his eyes were piercingly cold. She was so shocked by his glare that she could not speak for a moment. Lu Jingtian turned pale with fright when she saw this. She immediately went forward to help her up. Gu Xingze, why are you helping her? She was so angry that she even forgot to maintain her composure. Gu Xingze expressionlessly said, Song Enya, I don't have the patience. Don't be unreasonable in front of me. It's very annoying. She was so frightened by his cold glare that she fell silent. Lu Jingtian, who was standing at the side, opened her mouth to say something, but Gu Xingze swept a glance at her and coldly said, "Shut up." She did not dare to speak again. "Gu Xingze, you're too much." Her eyes were red, and it was obvious that she was about to cry from anger. "Have you had enough? I told you to shut up. Didn't you hear me?" Gu Xingze suddenly raised his voice. "Who let this miscellaneous person in?" "Miscellaneous personnel." Song Enya was startled. Just as she was about to retort, Lu Jingtian sensibly tugged at her arm, gesturing for her to stop talking. The security personnel rushed over at once. Glancing at Song Enya and Gu Xingze with trepidation, he whispered, It's me. From tomorrow onwards, you don't have to come anymore," Gu Xingze said coldly. The man was shocked at first, but then he nodded helplessly. Gu Xingze said again, "Chase her out. In the future, no one is allowed to enter." Song Enya stared at him in disbelief, but before she could say anything, she was chased out of the set by the security personnel, who had rushed over upon hearing the news. From beginning to end, June Mo shielded Yun Shirshir behind her. Only after the latter was chased away from the set did she turn around with a worried look and ask, "Shirshir, are you all right?" "Nothing. What can happen?" Yun Shirshir raised her eyebrows, but she didn't think much of it. "Aren't you angry at her for saying that about you?" "Why should I stoop to her level when she's just a lunatic?" Lu Jingtian glanced at her, snorted, and returned to her seat. Gu Xingze suddenly walked over and grabbed Yun Shirshir's arm tightly. Startled, she looked up and saw a strange anger on Gu Xingze's face. "Xingze, you—" Gu Xingze pulled her away. Yun Shirshir was confused. She did not understand what he was trying to do and only let go of her hand when he pulled her to a secluded corner. "Xingze, what's wrong with you?" Chapter 8:13. Yun Shirshir was shocked by his sudden action. She looked up blankly and saw him looking down at her. His eyes were deep, and his face was sullen. "Xingze, just now, she said that you were a third party and that you had a child out of wedlock." Gu Xingze opened his thin lips slightly and said coldly, "How do you feel after hearing such humiliation?" Yun Shirshir was stunned by his question and did not speak for a long time. "Why? You're not talking? Is this your choice?" Gu Xingze glared at her angrily. "Yun Shirshir, is this your choice? Do you like to humiliate yourself so much?" "What do you mean? What can he give you? Glory and wealth, a glorious title or endless fame and fortune. And then these slander, humiliation, abuse, and contempt. Are all these what you want?" Yun Shirshir was stunned. Even though his face was cold and his tone was cold, she still caught a flash of pity in his eyes. He was feeling sorry for her. Yun Shirshir was a little speechless. Gu Xingze continued, "Glory and wealth, fame and fortune, I can give you what he gave you. But if I were your man, I would never let anyone slander you, humiliate you, or abuse you." Yun Shirshir was tongue-tied. Gu Xingze's tone suddenly became gentler. His handsome face moved closer to her, and the anger in his eyes was replaced by tenderness and vulnerability. He looked at her with heartache and wanted to hug the woman in front of him tightly. But he couldn't. Gu Xingze closed his eyes and said in a hoarse voice, "Shirshir, if you met me before him, would you choose me?" If she met him before Muyaja, would she choose him? Yun Shirshir was stumped by this question. "Xingze, I've always treated you as an outstanding senior." Gu Xingze interrupted, "Can you not be a senior?" Yun Shirshir was stunned. "Yun Shirshir, in your eyes, am I really just a senior?" Gu Xingze slowly opened his eyes. His voice and eyes regained their calmness. "Yun Shirshir, I've always thought that I was a person who stood aloof from worldly affairs. But after meeting you for the first time, I wanted to fight for something. He had always thought that his heart would never be moved again. He even thought that he would be alone for the rest of his life. But when he met her, it was as if he had been bewitched. His heart was moved by her. Even when she glanced back, every frown and smile made his heart bleed. You still haven't answered me. Will you choose me? Without Muyaja, would you choose to be with me? He persistently pursued the matter, not wanting to give up just like that. As long as he heard the word yes from her mouth, he would fight for it by hook or by crook. Yun Shirshir was silent for a long time before she slowly reached out and pushed him away. I'm sorry, Xingze. Her rejection seemed to leave no room for negotiation. Xingze looked at her expressionlessly. Suddenly, the corners of his lips curled up slightly. Something seemed to be extinguished in his eyes. When Yun Shirshir came back to her senses and looked up, Xingze had already left. She took a deep breath and pulled herself together. Walking out of the corner, she saw Shi looking for her all over the set. Shirshir, where did you go? I couldn't find you anywhere. Yun Shirshir, on the other hand, seemed to be in a daze as she did not hear her words. Chapter 8:14. Shirshir, where did you go? I couldn't find you anywhere. Yun Shirshir, however, seemed to have not heard her and was a little distracted. Shirshir, what's wrong with you? Why are you as lifeless as Xingze? She asked helplessly. Nothing. I was thinking about something just now. Pursing her lips, she took out a thermos flask from her handbag and passed it to her. Here. Yun Shirshir took the thermos flask from her and could not help feeling surprised. What's this? It's ginger soup. I just made it for you. She then continued. Don't you have a scene in the rain at 7 p.m.? I hope you can do it in one take. Quickly take a hot shower after you're done and drink the ginger soup. Otherwise, you'll catch a cold easily. She knew that today's scene was a scene in the rain, so she quickly cooked a bowl of ginger soup. Yun Shirshir thanked her gratefully. Thank you. It's nothing. I'm your assistant. I've arranged everything for you. She smiled. At 7 p.m., the sprinklers were in place, and the shooting location was set in the hotel's parking lot. After Lin Fengtian arranged the camera positions, the script clerk rushed over and asked the actors to be in place immediately. This scene was about Yin Dongyu's absence from his engagement with Lin Hina because of Yin Xiaochuan's fever. In the ward, he mistakenly thought that she was asleep and revealed his feelings for her, which had been hidden in his heart for many years. Yin Xiaochuan suddenly opened her eyes. In fact, she was awake. When she heard that Yin Dongyu also had such restrained feelings for her, she questioned why he was not with her. Yin Dongyu reacted abruptly and panicked. He left the ward and wanted to drive away. Yin Xiaochuan chased after him. In the rain, the two's emotional entanglement was pushed to the climax. In terms of makeup, Ding Ning specially put on nude makeup for her to highlight her sickly haggardness. When the makeup was done, Ding Ning took a look and could not help but be stunned. Her haggard makeup, pale face and lips, as well as her pair of ethereal eyes, actually revealed a sense of poignant beauty. So beautiful! The script clerk came to rush her again. Yun Shirshir quickly got up. On set, the lights and cameras were in place. Yun Shirshir just arrived and saw Xingze sitting in his seat with the makeup artist touching up his makeup. Xingze also saw her. His gaze fell on her pale and haggard face, and his heart clenched. However, when he realized that it was because of the makeup, he calmed down. Scene 28, Scene 1. Yun Shirshir glanced at Xingze in a daze for a moment before she rushed forward with her umbrella. She had only taken a few steps when Lin Fengtian cut her off. This scene is very important, so I'll have to trouble you to bring out your 200%. Please, Enchanting chased after him anxiously. Where's the anxiety on your face? I'm sorry. I'll adjust my state right away. Yun Shirshir immediately apologized. She had indeed been distracted for a moment, so much so that she lost her composure when she took the first step. Lin Fengtian said sternly, Yun Shirshir, you're very talented and have a high level of understanding. I hope you won't disappoint me. Even though he admired her, filming was work. If there were any mistakes at work, he would not be merciful. He was very clear about both the inside and outside of filming. Chapter 8:15. Mushi watched from the side with trepidation, only hoping that this scene in the rain would end quickly. The Green Apple, Scene 28, Scene 2, Action. The filming was still not progressing smoothly. The main reason was that Gu Xingze was not in the right state. Yun Shirshir, on the other hand, was lacking in her vision. Lin Fengtian, who was sitting in front of the monitor, felt that the two were not in the right state and seemed to be preoccupied with their own thoughts. Gu Xingze, in particular, had either a misty look or a deep look in his eyes. The intense emotional struggle in Yin Dongyu's eyes could not be expressed properly. Yun Shirshir, on the other hand, had the vision and could recite her lines well, but her expression was awkward. It was an indescribable awkwardness. Lin Fengtian cut, and then announced, "We'll take a 15-minute break." Mushi immediately went forward with a blanket and covered Yun Shirshir with it, helping her back to her seat. Gu Xingze sat beside her, too, but he did not look at her, treating her as if she were air. There was no interaction throughout. Lin Fengtian was observant and vaguely sensed that there was something fishy between the two. Hence he walked to Yun Shirshir, sent Gu Xingze away, and sat in his seat. "Shirshir, you're not in the right state today. What are you thinking about?" I was distracted. "Sorry." He waved his hand. "I don't want to hear this. Have you been in a relationship before?" "I guess. I've been in a relationship before." Imagine him as the man you love deeply, and then put yourself in the role. Imagine the man you love deeply, and he clearly loves you back, but he doesn't dare to love. He played up her emotions. For the next scene, you must show Enchanting's anger and hysteria. Yun Shirshir was very perceptive and easily understood what he wanted her to express. "Director Lin, thank you. I understand. Try to pass in one scene." With that, he walked to Gu Xingze's side. His face sank in an instant. "Xingze, for this scene, you just need to follow your inner struggle." Gu Xingze was stunned. Lin Fengtian tapped the table with his fingertips and snorted. "Do you think I can't tell? You like Yun Shirshir, don't you?" Gu Xingze looked up. His face was pale and his eyes were hollow. "Your current state of mind is very suitable for this scene. Yin Dongyu's inner drama. Think about it carefully and express all your inner thoughts later." "That will do." Lin Fengtian's eyes were sharp. How could he not see Gu Xingze's feelings for Yun Shirshir? He liked her. But this fondness could only be buried in the bottom of his heart. Gu Xingze frowned slightly. Lin Fengtian stood up and patted him on the shoulder. "Think about it carefully. Try to pass it in one go." With that, he left. Gu Xingze looked up, and his eyes met with Yun Shirshir's. She was sitting not far away from him. When she saw that he was looking at her, she immediately looked away. 15 minutes passed quickly. Yun Shirshir and Gu Xingze returned to the scene. The staff held up a hose and sprayed it into the sky, creating an artificial rain curtain. The Green Apple, Scene 28, Scene 7, Action. "Yin Dongyu!" Yun Shirshir screamed, hysterically. From the start, she was in the right state of mind. This scream was so loud that her voice almost broke. Chapter 8:16. Gu Xingze stood in the rain, with his back to her. Yun Shirshir rushed into the rain. Seeing that he had stopped in his tracks, she slowly walked forward and tried to hold his hand. However, the moment her trembling fingertips were about to touch his hand, Gu Xingze retracted his hand as if he had been electrocuted. Yun Shirshir's eyes revealed an extremely hurt look. Brother, a helpless and weak cry directly hit the weakest part of people's hearts. Yun Shirshir said in a hoarse voice, "Why are you always running away from me? Why? Why do you love me too? Why do you always want to run away from me? When you love me so much, what are you running away from?" Gu Xingze's heart trembled slightly, but he quickly suppressed the turbulent emotions in his heart and pretended to be calm. "I'm not running away. You are. You clearly are." Yun Shirshir broke down and said, "You've always been running away from me. Always." As she spoke, she reached out and hooked her hand around his. This time, he did not avoid her. Yun Shirshir stared at his back again and said carefully, "Didn't we agree in the past? We'll be together for life, forever. Have you forgotten what you promised me?" Her pale lips trembled uncontrollably as she pleaded in a broken voice, "Brother, love me, okay?" There was a long silence. Lin Fengtian immediately zoomed in and gave Yun Shirshir a close-up shot. The fragile look in her eyes was full of tension. Lin Fengtian secretly cheered in his heart. The dead silence felt like a century. After a long time, Gu Xingze sighed and muttered, "How should I love you?" He turned his head, and the camera zoomed in on his face. Gu Xingze frowned slightly. The hesitation and vulnerability in his eyes were almost obvious. Even Yun Shirshir's heart could not help but tremble when she saw this gaze. "Xiachuan, how should I love you?" The scene finally passed. Lin Fengtian stood up and applauded in shock. Yun Shirshir also left her character with a gratified smile on her face. Gu Xingze, on the other hand, seemed to be too immersed in his role and looked lonely. Yun Shirshir caught a glimpse of his expression from the corner of her eye, and her smile froze on her lips. "Wrap up. Get ready. That's all for today." Gu Xingze abruptly turned around and walked toward the building. Yun Shirshir was still in a daze. She quickly brought a blanket over and urged, "Shirshir, hurry up and take a shower." Yun Shirshir's mind, and she nodded. "Do you need me to accompany you?" "No, I'll go myself." "Yes. Remember to drink the ginger soup after you shower." The production crew had booked a floor next to the hospital. The rooms inside were specially reserved for the production crew. At this moment, the sky was already dark. The receptionist at the front desk was dozing off. Yun Shirshir held the room card tightly in her hand and carried the thermos flask as she walked into the hotel. At the elevator entrance, she bumped into Gu Xingze. She was stunned and could not help but feel awkward. During the scene in the rain earlier, she was completely drenched. Gu Xingze, on the other hand, had been holding an umbrella the whole time and only got a little wet. "You have to remember to take a shower, too. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll catch a cold." "MHM." He responded lightly, but his gaze was fixed on the elevator door. The elevator kept jumping up and down. Ding dong. It was a text message notification. Chapter 817. The elevator door opened, and Gu Xingze walked in. Yun Shirshir had also finished replying to the text message and followed him into the elevator. However, when she stepped into the elevator, she felt a violent tremor under her feet. The lights in the elevator suddenly flickered a few times, and the elevator suddenly lost control and fell. At this moment, Yun Shirshir was already halfway into the elevator. Just as the elevator was about to lose control and fall, and she was about to be caught, Gu Xingze quickly grabbed her arm and pulled her into the elevator. Yun Shirshir lost her balance and fell into his arms. Bang! Her phone fell to the ground. The two of them fell to the ground together because of the tremor in the elevator. Then, they felt a strange centrifugal force, and the elevator continued to fall. Bang! It was as if it had fallen to the bottom. After a short moment of suffocation, there was a loud clang. The entire floor of the elevator seemed to have collided violently, and it was so loud that their ears were buzzing. Gu Xingzi subconsciously hugged Yun Shishir tightly in his arms. At that moment, he felt as if his bones were about to break from the impact of his back hitting the ground. Then, the entire elevator shook and the lights flickered. Everything returned to silence. At this moment, the elevator door slowly closed. Yun Shishir could not react in time. She did not realize what had happened at all. When everything quieted down, she looked around and saw that the elevator's floor display was black. In the elevator shaft, there was the sound of a rope being sawed. In the quiet and narrow space, these cold sounds only made one feel uneasy and anxious. The elevator malfunctioned. That was her first reaction. She turned to look at Gu Xingzi, but saw that his face was pale, and he seemed to have a lingering fear. Clearly, he was still in shock from the accident that had happened earlier. Just imagine, if he had not acted fast enough, he might have only been able to watch Yun Shishir get caught in the elevator. As for the consequences, he did not even dare to think about it. Yun Shishir also carefully recalled that when she stepped into the elevator just now, she felt that the elevator suddenly fell. Gu Xingzi grabbed her and dragged her into the elevator. Thinking about it carefully, Yun Shishir felt a chill run up her spine. If Gu Xingzi had not reacted quickly enough, or if he had chosen to push her out instead of pulling her in, she would have been in deep trouble. Because of the situation just now, it was too late for him to push her out. She was almost caught in the elevator. The fear in her heart seemed to want to swallow her whole. She had just brushed shoulders with the god of death. Xingzi, Yun Shishir's heartbeat quickened, and her palms were full of cold sweat. However, she still calmed down immediately and said gratefully, "Thank you." Gu Xingzi closed his eyes and quickly calmed himself down. He stood up slowly and pressed the button for the floor. The lights on the floor were no longer on. The lights above his head flickered, and the exhaust fan was still running. He turned around and looked at Yun Shishir. His thin lips moved slightly. "Shishir, don't be nervous. I'm here." Yun Shishir responded with an and felt strangely calm. She did not feel so nervous anymore. Chapter 8:18. Gu Xingzi felt a headache coming on. How did this happen? He had been in the industry for so many years and had often flown around the world. He had also encountered hotel elevator malfunctions, but it had never happened to him. However, until he experienced it himself, he could feel the uneasiness and panic of being trapped in an elevator. He reached out and pressed the emergency bell. However, after pressing it for a long time, no one responded. What's going on? Gu Xingzi looked puzzled. Is it malfunctioning? Yun Shishir also stood up and tried pressing the floor button, but the lights did not turn on at all. She pressed the emergency bell again. The bell rang, but no one responded. What's going on? Why is the emergency bell not working? Malfunctioning? It doesn't seem like it. Strange. There should be people on duty in the elevator management room 24 hours a day. Yun Shishir said gloomily. How can this hotel be like this? The security measures are terrible. This hotel is a small one. Many hotels are like this, Gu Xingzi said. Yun Shishir asked, have you encountered this before? Yes, I have. I saw it on the news. Oh, I saw it on the news too. Didn't a university elevator malfunction before? A student got stuck in the elevator and died. Yun Shishir said. Gu Xingzi said, I saw that report too. I didn't expect this to happen to me. It was so dangerous just now. Yun Shishir saw the phone that had fallen and quickly picked it up. The phone had been turned off. She quickly turned it on and wanted to use the phone to call for help. Gu Xingzi saw her actions and said, "It's no use. The phone signal in the elevator is blocked. There is no mobile network coverage. Moreover, we are in the basement now." Sure enough, Yun Shishir turned on the phone, but there was no signal. She could not make the call. "What should we do? There is no signal at all." There was no network and no signal. There was no way to communicate with the outside world. She suddenly panicked and fell into a deep helplessness. No one responded to the call for help, and there was no signal on their cell phones. They were like people who had gotten lost in the wilderness, isolated and helpless. Gu Xingzi's brows furrowed slightly as he tirelessly pressed the button for help over and over again. However, perhaps due to the elevator's lack of maintenance or some other reason, no one responded for a long time. Could it be that someone in the security room was dozing off? In the end, he secretly left his post and went to play. Half an hour later, there was still no response. Frustrated, he punched the elevator door and finally gave up. Yun Shishir sighed. "Are we on the third floor of the basement?" "Yes." She asked again, "Will the elevator resume braking?" "I won't." Gu Xingzi turned around and said, "There's an emergency device in the elevator. It's malfunctioning and has stopped the brakes. So now, we can only wait for the maintenance staff to arrive?" He pondered for a moment and slowly said, "Yes, that's the only way." Yun Shishir suddenly lost all her strength and felt a little desperate. Then, when will they find out that someone is trapped in the elevator? Gu Xingzi looked at her and suddenly walked to her side. He picked up a blanket that had fallen on the ground and covered her body. "Don't be afraid. By tomorrow morning, someone will find out." This is already the worst-case scenario. The look of relief on his face gave her great confidence. Chapter 819. The moment she lowered her head, the water droplets on her hair dripped onto the floor of the elevator. Gu Xingzi frowned and urged, "Dry your hair first. You've been drenched in the rain. Don't catch a cold." Seeing that she was drenched, he recalled that she had been in the rain for a long time. Because he was not in the right state, she had been drenched for a full 3 hours. He pursed his lips and could not help but blame himself and worry. "Are you cold?" "A little." Yun Shishir curled her lips in embarrassment. Seeing the unconcealable worry in his eyes, she suddenly burst into laughter. Gu Xingzi did not know whether to laugh or cry when he saw her laugh. "What are you laughing at? You're finally not so cold." Yun Shishir said, truthfully, if not for the elevator malfunction, she did not know how long Gu Xingzi would continue to be cold to her. Gu Xingzi was stunned for a moment before he laughed helplessly. He picked up a corner of the blanket and wiped her wet hair. Suddenly, he parted his thin lips. "I'm sorry." Yun Shishir remained silent. She lowered her head and unlocked her phone. She turned on the music and played a single from Gu Xingzi's album that had just been released. The sound of the music dispelled the uneasy atmosphere in the elevator caused by the dead silence. Gu Xingzi also sat down and leaned close to her. It seemed that this way he could transmit his warmth to her. After the production team packed up the props, many staff members left. More than 2 hours had passed, but Yun Shishir was still nowhere to be seen. She raised her hand to look at the time. It was already midnight. Why was she not here yet? She dialed Yun Shishir's number, but the robotic female voice said that the call could not be reached at the moment. She rushed to the hotel, only to see the person at the front desk dozing off. Hence, she walked to the elevator and pressed the up button, but the other elevator did not respond. It was a black screen. "The elevator is broken?" she muttered gloomily. "What kind of lousy hotel is this?" This hotel wasn't a 5-star hotel. although it wasn't considered high class. It was close to the filming location, other than a four-star hotel nearby. The other hotels were even more dilapidated. Only this one was slightly more proper. Lin Fengtian considered the issue of funds and booked the 2nd and 10th floors of the hotel. Among them, the rooms on the 2nd floor were arranged for the staff, and the 2 rooms on the 10th floor were arranged for the main actors. Of course, the main lead would not stay in a hotel. It was just for convenience when filming ran late. Moreover, artists like Yang Mi and Gu Xingzi usually had nanny vans to accompany them. Most of the time, this room was only used for them to rest. To be honest, this hotel was really run down. The receptionist did not have any work ethics at all. She dozed off during working hours. One of the elevators was broken, but no one came to fix it. Perhaps it was too late. The maintenance staff had already gotten off work. Mu Shi did not think much of it. She went up to the 10th floor and rushed to her room. Just as she opened the door, she was greeted by a dark room. It was as if no one had been there at all. Mu Shi was stunned for a moment before she mustered up her courage to knock on Gu Xingzi's door, but no one responded. There was no one there either. When she returned to the 1st floor, she passed by the front desk and wanted to ask the staff at the front desk if they had seen Yun Shishir. When she walked over, she saw that one of the staff on the night shift was dozing off. Forget it. It's pointless to ask. They're all dozing off. What else can they see? Chapter 8:20. I'll expose this hotel service on the internet. She did not suspect that the elevator had malfunctioned, nor did she expect that the person she was looking for was trapped in the elevator. It was not that she was careless, but how would an ordinary person think of this? After all, under normal circumstances, elevator malfunctions would only happen on the news. Hence, she did not think too much about it. She walked out of the hotel and dialed Yun Shishir's number again, but it still could not get through. She dialed several times, but all she heard was the mechanical female voice repeating the prompts. She wanted to dial Gu Xingzi's number, but then she realized that she did not have Gu Xingzi's number. Aya, what's going on? She rubbed her hair in frustration. Where did these two go? Why were they both uncontactable? By the time she returned to the set, the props were almost all packed. Lin Fengtian was still busy. She stepped forward and cautiously asked, Director Lin, have you seen Shishir? Shishir? He turned around. Why would I see her? Aren't you her assistant? She was at a loss for words. He laughed. You're her assistant. If you don't know where she went, how would I know? Wasn't she drenched earlier? I told her to take a hot shower in her room, but she didn't come back. She complained. Have you looked for her in the hotel? There's no one in the room. Only then did he look straight at her. There's no one in the room? Then where else could she have gone? He found it strange. Did you call her phone? I can't get through. Can't get through? He frowned. She was so nervous that her face turned red. I called her a few times, but I couldn't get through. I don't know what's going on. From the corner of her eye, she saw Ruo Bing packing her backpack. Ignoring the director, she chased after her. Ruo Bing, Ruo Bing. The woman stopped in her tracks with a blank look. You are. I'm Yun Shishir's assistant. Oh. Ruo Bing smiled. Sorry, I didn't recognize you. It's fine. She asked worriedly. By the way, have you seen my Shishir? No. Ruo Bing was confused by her question again. However, he felt that something was off. Why did this little assistant run over to ask about her when her own artiste was missing? She was not Yun Shishir's assistant. Then, did you see Xingzhe? He probably went back, Ruo Bing said helplessly. Although I'm Xingzhe's assistant, he's a little, he doesn't like people interfering with his private life. Usually after filming, he doesn't let anyone follow him. Is it convenient for you to give me his number? She asked cautiously. Ruo Bing was startled, but she shook her head. I'm sorry, I can't. Xingzhe's number is usually not disclosed to others. I don't have any other intentions. I just wanted to ask Xingzhe if he saw Shirshir. She pleaded, or, it's fine if you don't give it to me. You can give him a call. It's an emergency, please, please. Lin Fengtian walked over. Seeing the conflicted look on her face, he said, give Xingzhe a call and ask him where he is. Ruo Bing could not refuse the director's request, so she nodded. Okay. Chapter 8:21. The call went through, but no one picked up the call. At this moment, Gu Xingzhe was sitting in the driver's seat of his Porsche parked in the parking lot. His phone kept vibrating and ringing. No one's picking up. Ruo Bing said, this is Xingzhe's work number. He threw it aside after filming. Let's try calling a few more times. She pressed her palms together and pleaded again. All right. The woman nodded helplessly. She called a few more times, but still no one picked up. Seeing her disappointment, Ruo Bing comforted her with a smile. Don't worry, Yun Shirshir is an adult and not a child. How could she go missing? You don't have to worry so much. She furrowed her brows, still feeling uneasy. When I first became an assistant, I was just like you. I couldn't wait to stick behind Xingzhe as if he were a child. Actually, as assistants, we don't have to worry about every little thing, no matter how big or small. Artistes should have their own private space, too. The director thought about it and raised a brow. You go back first. I'll send someone to look for them. Okay. Thank you, Director Lin. She had no other choice. At this moment, in the elevator, Yun Shirshir wrapped her wet body in a blanket and curled up in a corner. The damp and cold air kept invading her body. The air conditioner in the elevator continued to pour in cold air. She had been drenched in the rain for so long that her wet clothes stuck to her body. She was wet and cold, and with the air conditioner blowing, she felt even colder. She did not know how long she had been trapped in the elevator, but she felt that time passed abnormally slowly. Gradually, she felt a little lightheaded. Her body slumped in a corner, and she became a little dispirited. Gu Xingzhe persistently pressed the help button until the device's battery ran out, and it stopped ringing. ***. He cursed under his breath and turned around, only to see Yun Shirshir wrapped in a blanket and shivering all over. Gu Xingzhe's heart tightened. He immediately walked to her side and squatted down. He carefully placed his hand on her shoulder, but his fingertips came into contact with a patch of dampness. His heart ached, and he gently pushed her shoulder. Shirshir, what happened to you? Ugh. Yun Shirshir was a little delirious. She peeked her eyes out of the blanket, but there was no focus in her eyes. Cold, cold? So cold. Gu Xingzhe raised her head and looked at the mouth that was still emitting cold air. The direction of the wind seemed to be aimed at her. No wonder he felt cold. His entire body was drenched, and the cold air was blowing on his body. He said gently, Shirshir, don't do it here. You'll catch a cold. Yun Shirshir's brows furrowed slightly as she moved slightly. Yes. She held his arm and stood up slightly, but her legs were inexplicably soft. Gu Xingzhe touched her hand, only to feel that her palm was covered in cold sweat and her fingertips were burning hot. His heart skipped a beat, and he reached out to touch her forehead. A scalding temperature spread from the center of his palm. She had a fever. Gu Xingzhe bit his lower lip. His heart was burning with anxiety and anger. On one hand, he was angry at the hotel's terrible emergency equipment, but on the other hand, he felt very sorry for her. Gu Xingzhe brought her to another corner and took off his jacket to cover her back. He was afraid that she would catch a cold in the cold elevator walls. Yun Shirshir did not even have the strength to thank him. Chapter 8:22. She didn't notice the air conditioning in the elevator just now. She only felt that it was getting colder in the corner. She curled up into a ball unconsciously, but she still couldn't resist the cold. Gu Xingzi sat beside her. Seeing her dispirited expression, her breathing a little rapid, and her palm-sized face burning red, his heart ached. Unwilling to give up, he pressed the emergency bell again, but there was no more sound. He pressed it continuously, and the battery had long since run out. He kicked the door, and it made a loud bang. It wasn't that he didn't shout. However, he knew that the elevator was now parked in the basement. If no one passed by, no one would notice, and no one would hear his cries for help on the first floor. Calling for help with all his might was futile. In fact, a few people had parked their cars in the basement and went upstairs. However, they saw that the elevator seemed to have malfunctioned and couldn't operate, so they went to another elevator. In this world, most people were indifferent. They were in a hurry and didn't care about themselves. After all, in most cases, most people wouldn't be willing to worry about things that had nothing to do with them. Therefore, no one reported to the front desk that the elevator was malfunctioning. Some people thought that the elevator was being repaired, so they didn't ask about it at all. Time ticked by. Gu Xingzi picked up Yun Shirshir's phone and glanced at it. It was already 3 in the morning. The phone had been playing music, and the battery was about to run out. He turned off the music to ensure that the phone's battery was maintained. This desperate situation could be considered as keeping a glimmer of hope for them. If there was a miracle and there was suddenly a signal, they could use the phone to call for help. Yun Shirshir covered herself with the blanket and shivered. Gu Xingzi gently placed his hand on her forehead. Her forehead was frighteningly hot. His heart became a little anxious. Staying in such a confined and narrow space for a long time already made her feel a little suffocated. If she fell asleep with a fever, it would be easy for her to have breathing difficulties. If the high fever didn't subside, it was even possible for her to suffocate. Therefore, he said gently, "Shirshir, don't fall asleep, okay? Wake up." Yun Shirshir's voice was muffled. It was hoarse and weak. "My head hurts. It's so cold." Gu Xingzi's brows furrowed slightly. Instinctively, he wanted to reach out and pull her into his embrace. However, just as he reached out his hand, he lowered his head to look at her slightly furrowed brows. Suddenly, he froze in midair and didn't move for a long time. He looked at her trembling shoulders and struggled in his heart for a long time. In the end, he placed his hand on her shoulder and slowly pulled her into his embrace. Yun Shirshir was startled for a moment. Suddenly, she felt a strong heartbeat in her ears. It was scorching hot. Thump, 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 thump. Every sound was filled with great power. He gathered the blanket around her and wrapped it tighter around her. "Don't fall asleep. Someone will come to save us soon." Gu Xingzi comforted her gently. Sensing that the body of the person in his arms had stiffened, he immediately explained, "I was just afraid that you would be cold." "Thank you," Yun Shirshir said softly. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito, almost inaudible. "Let's practice our lines." Gu Xingzi suddenly said. He was really afraid that she would fall asleep and have an uncontrollable fever. In fact, he didn't know when the rescue team would arrive with the efficiency of this hotel. However, at this moment, he could only comfort her like this. Chapter 8:23. Gu Xingzi could not help hugging her tighter when he heard her voice getting fainter. Lowering his head, he suddenly saw a thermos flask beside her hand. His eyes flashed as he opened it. There was still some warm ginger soup inside. He carefully poured out some and brought it to her mouth, reminding, Sure, drink some ginger soup. Yun Sure sat up slightly and took a few sips. After drinking a few mouthfuls of the warm ginger soup, her body seemed to be filled with a faint amount of heat. Gu Xingze poured her another cup, and Yun Sure obediently finished it. Seeing that she had finished all the ginger soup, Gu Xingze was afraid that she would fall asleep, so he said, I'll sing for you. Yun Sure blinked. Okay. Gu Xingze's lips curled into a smile as he spoke in a hoarse voice. A long time ago, you had me and I had you. A long time ago, you left me to soar in the distant sky. Mushi returned home. After washing up, she lay in bed, but she still could not sleep well. Even after returning home, she still tirelessly dialed Yun Shure's number over and over again, but she still could not get through to her. Although Lin Fengtian and Ruo Bing repeatedly comforted her, she still felt uneasy. Perhaps it was a person's sixth sense. Moreover, although she had not been by Yun Shure's side for long, she understood her character. Whether she was coming home or not, she would at least let her know. Yun Shure was very polite and treated everyone around her with utmost respect. She would not let her worry, unless it was something out of her control. Mushi tossed and turned in bed as her thoughts ran wild. Suddenly, she sat up in frustration, and the phone beside her pillow rang. In the dark and quiet, the phone's ringing gave her a fright. She was startled at first, and then quickly picked up the phone, thinking that it was Yun Shure calling. However, the string of unfamiliar numbers displayed on the screen made her heart turn cold. Mushi sighed and picked up the call, asking weakly, Hello, are you Yun Shure's assistant? A child's childish voice came from the other end of the phone. It was quiet, but there was a hint of anxiety. He was as steady as an adult. If it wasn't for that immature voice, she wouldn't even be able to tell that it was a child's tone. Mushi was stunned and subconsciously answered, Yes. On the other end, Yun Tianyu was sitting on the sofa with a business card in his hand. His expression was solemn. Yun Shure is my mommy. She hasn't come back yet, and I can't get through to her phone. I want to ask, do you know where she is? Mushi was stunned. She immediately reacted, thinking that it was a child's prank. Child? Shure had a child? What kind of joke was this? Shure was only 24 years old, and she already had a child? She obviously didn't believe him. However, is my mommy still filming with the crew? It was time to go home. She sent me a message earlier, but I haven't heard from her since. I can't get through to her phone. 2. I'm very worried. Sorry to disturb you. Yu's tone was polite and courteous, but more than that, it was calm and smooth, which was rare for a child. Chapter 8:24. Yun Tianyu caught a clue. You said that she disappeared without a trace after the shoot? Yes. She nodded repeatedly. Yu looked at his watch. It was already past 5 in the morning. What time was it? I can't remember either. At this time, Yu was unexpectedly calm. Think about it carefully, she carefully recalled, and said, It should be around 10. I really can't remember the exact time. I didn't pay attention to the time at that time. He hurriedly checked the last message sent by Yun Shure. It was 10:12 a.m. The time matched. On the other side, she cautiously asked, Little friend, is Yun Shure your mommy? Yes, he replied abruptly. Where are you now? Is it convenient for you to pick me up? She looked out the window. It was already late at night. She was a little worried and doubtful of this child. So she said, Why don't we call the police first? Annie, the police only filed a case after losing contact with her for 48 hours. Although we can still call the police now, it's already so late. How efficient do you think the police will be? You seriously reminded her. She was stunned by his calm analysis. This child, his rationality had completely overturned her worldview. How old was this child? Judging from his voice, he was no more than 6 or 7 years old. Were children nowadays so smart? He even knew the conditions for the police to file a case. Annie, I'm very worried about my mommy, but I'm the only one at home now. It's inconvenient for me to go out, so I can only trouble you. Okay, then your house is Shandy Walk. I'll wait for you at the entrance. Okay. She hung up the phone, changed her clothes, and left with her car keys. Her apartment was only a 10-minute drive away from Shandy Walk. Soon, she arrived at the entrance of Shandy Walk. She sat in the car and was curiously looking at the entrance when a light knock came from the car door. The sudden movement startled her. She immediately looked over and saw a little munchkin wearing a white shirt and a small suit with suspenders. He was carrying a small backpack and standing at the car door. Surprised, she quickly unlocked the car door. Then she watched helplessly as the handsome and delicate little boy nervously climbed into the car. His posture was as light as a cat. He quickly closed the door and fastened his seatbelt skillfully. Then he looked at her. Let's go to the set. Her assistant. Could she say that she was frightened? She had never seen a child who was still so calm even after his mommy was gone. She looked at him carefully. The child was only about 6 or 7 years old. He was so tender that it seemed as if milk could drip out of him. He had a handsome and pleasant little face and exquisite facial features. His eyebrows were indeed very similar to Yun Shirshir's. Did Shirshir really have a child? She was greatly shocked by this fact. Seeing her staring at him in a daze, he waved his hand in front of her. She returned to her senses and saw his serious expression. Auntie, you can't be in a daze while driving. It's very dangerous. She mumbled, thanks for the reminder. Let's drive. Yun Tianyu ordered. In fact, he originally wanted to call Lee Hanlon to pick him up. Chapter 8:25. She drove all the way to the set. At this moment, the set was in dead silence. All the props had been packed up and transported away. The huge parking lot had been restored to its original state, and there were no clues to be found. Yun Tianyu searched the set for a while, but did not find anything. She stared blankly at his calm and rational face. She could not tell that he was only 6 or 7 years old. Were children nowadays so precocious? Yun Tianyu walked up to her and asked, Mommy sent me a message before I lost contact with her. It was around 10 p.m. Where did she go at that time? Hotel. Yes, she was drenched, so I let her take a shower in the hotel. Hotel. He could not help feeling suspicious. Yes, she explained, our production team booked a room in the hotel next door. It's usually for artists to rest. Shirshir's room was on the 10th floor. You asked, won't we know Mommy's whereabouts if we go to the hotel to check the surveillance footage? His words woke her up from her daze. She smacked her head. Yeah. Oh, right. Why didn't I think of that before? Yu secretly gave her a look of disdain. Because she was stupid. Of course, he could only criticize her inwardly. He did not show any contempt for her IQ on his face, and only asked, Can you bring me to the hotel then? Okay. She squatted down and wanted to carry him. Yun Tianyu said, I'll walk by myself. She wondered if this child had non-human genes. Usually, children would be afraid of walking at night. Did he want to be carried? He did not want to be carried. His face seemed to be full of disdain. She wanted to cry, but had no tears. The two rushed to the hotel. The moment they entered, Yun Tianyu started looking around. This hotel was not ordinary rundown. This production team was really stingy. She explained that the production team was controlling the budget, so they did not stay in a high-end hotel. Yun Tianyu did not show it on his face, but he was doubtful inside. Did he not invest a sum of money? Tens of millions. Did a dog eat it? Excluding the remuneration of the stars, the cost of a youth movie was very low compared to those commercial blockbusters that required special effects. Moreover, Leji was not the only investor. Huan Yu had other investors plus advertising placements. Yet they were still staying in such a shabby hotel? Or could it be that the money he had invested had gone missing? Mu Shi walked to the front desk and saw that the receptionist had already fallen asleep. She called out a few times, but there was no response. Yu Yu walked over and kicked a stool. The receptionist woke up with a start. Looking around, he saw a handsome little boy standing in front of him, looking at him with disdain. Immediately, he said angrily, where did this kid come from? Auntie, are you awake? Yu Yu said coldly, but his words were shocking. The young, 29-year-old receptionist was petrified when she heard him call her Auntie. Mu Shi was dumbfounded by his simple and crude method. This child, who did he look like? Right, she had just thought of a question that needed to be investigated. If this was really Shershur's child, then who was the father of this child? She kept feeling that when she saw his face, a vague image of a man's face suddenly appeared in her mind, but she couldn't remember who it was. Aya, now is not the time to pursue this matter. Chapter 8:26. She then asked, Receptionist, where is the hotel surveillance room? Can we take a look at the footage? The receptionist was stunned. She then yawned and sized her up warily. You are? I'm from the production team of the Green Apple. Our production team has booked 10 rooms in this hotel. The receptionist was a little stunned. I've just been transferred here not long ago. I heard that a production team has booked this hotel, but why do you want to see the footage? It's an emergency, of course. An artiste from the production team went missing after entering the hotel. Her phone can't be reached, and she disappeared after entering the hotel. So we want to take a look at the footage. The receptionist rubbed her sleepy eyes and apologized. I'm sorry. If someone from the production team goes missing, shouldn't we call the police directly? Call the police? That's right. May I ask how long has she been missing? Since 10 o'clock until now. Call the police then. You said, even if we call the police, we'll only take a statement and file the case 48 hours later. Mu Shi nervously said, actually, given the current situation, we don't need the police to make an appearance. We just need to know where she went after entering the hotel. It's like this, the receptionist explained seriously with a frown. If the police don't make an appearance, we don't have the right to access the footage, the receptionist said truthfully. Why? We don't have the authority, the receptionist said. Some time ago, a client's laptop and some belongings were stolen from the hotel. He also requested for the footage to be removed. In the end, the police had to intervene to get the footage. You furrowed his brows. This hotel's service attitude was really worrisome. Mu Shi had already gone to the side to call the police. In the end, the police replied that there were not many officers on night duty at the police station. 2 of them were taking statements and could not respond to the call in time. They also said that if the person was missing, it was recommended to call the police 12 hours later or wait until after 8 a.m. for the police to send someone to understand the situation. After hanging up the call, Yu asked about the situation, and she told him the truth. What should we do? She asked anxiously, subconsciously asking for his opinion. Even she did not realize that an adult like her was seriously asking a child for advice. Yu's pink lips slightly pursed. Then he thought of something and took out his phone to dial a number. The phone rang for a long time before it was picked up. He said, Daddy, I'm at Hao Tai Hotel now. There's an emergency. Come over. Moo, she stared dumbfoundedly at him as he calmly hung up the phone. Her mind was in a mess. She could see the anxiety and nervousness in the child's eyes. Even though he was anxious, the calmness he showed was admirable. 10 minutes later, a sports car stopped at the entrance of the hotel. When the slender and handsome man appeared at the entrance, she was stunned. Only then did she realize why this child's appearance was so familiar. Mushi's lips twitched as she sized up the father-son pair in a daze. The father of this child was actually the crown prince of the Mu clan, Muyaja. She suddenly understood the killing intent and anger in his eyes when he saw Yun Shirshir being bullied and slapped by Yen Bingqing. Chapter 8:27. Mu, she was still in a state of confusion. Muyaja walked in and saw the little lad standing at the front desk. He walked over to carry him and asked him what had happened. The receptionist stared at the handsome man in front of her with her mouth agape. Even though Muyaja had rushed out in a hurry and was only wearing a casual shirt, she could still feel his innate elegance and nobility. Come to think of it, this man's identity must be either rich or noble with an extraordinary background. He was tall and had an extraordinary aura. Just by standing there, his aura permeated every inch of the room, making the large space seem extremely narrow and small. While Mushi was still in a daze, Yu had already recounted what had happened to him in a very short time. Muyaja's eyes turned cold. When did she disappear? Yu said, Mommy's last reply was at 10:12 p.m. When I called her at 10:30 p.m., I couldn't get through. He could not contact Yun Shirshir, so he rummaged through the house and found Yun Shirshir's and Qin Zhou's name cards. He first called Qin Zhou's number, but it was switched off. He then called Mushi's number, which led to the subsequent incident. Yu continued. Now, I mainly want to see the hotel's CCTV, but the receptionist said that only the police have the authority to access the CCTV. Muyaja's cold gaze landed on the receptionist. The receptionist trembled under his glare and hurriedly explained, Sir, this is the hotel's rule. I really can't make the decision. If you're not the police, you can't access the CCTV. Have you called the police? Yes, but the police said that they will only arrive in the morning. Muyaja narrowed his eyes and carried Yu to a corner. He made a call and gave a few brief instructions. She did not know what he said, but soon 3 police cars arrived in a hurry. What happened next left her dumbfounded. 4 to 5 men in police uniforms alighted. It was the police chief, Chun Wei, who had hurriedly led a team here. When he walked through the door, he saw a tall man standing in the hall. He immediately bowed and walked forward with a flattering and respectful smile on his face. It was worlds apart from Mushi's impression of a policeman who did not like to smile. Chun Wei walked up to Muyaja and bowed slightly, saying in an extremely respectful tone, Hello, CEO Mu. Hello. I didn't know it was you, so I've neglected you. Please don't take it to heart. Muyaja remained expressionless and did not speak. Son is... Muyaja did not fall for his trick, though. His voice was so cold that it made one's scalp tingle. I think we can skip the pleasantries. Business is more important, isn't it? This time, it was cold, dignified, and extremely intimidating. He stood there without any expression on his face, but he still exuded an aura of authority. Muyaja's name was known by everyone in the capital. It was just that very few people had the honor of seeing his face in person. This was Chun Wei's first time seeing him. Previously, he had only heard of his name. Now that he saw him in person, he was greatly shocked. Tall, handsome, and dignified, just like the rumors said, he was a dragon among men. Chapter 8:28. Muyaja said, I want to take a look at this hotel's CCTV, but the hotel said that they don't have the authority to do so without the involvement of the police. Chun Wei nodded repeatedly. Sir, you want to take a look at the CCTV, right? Leave it to me. I'll arrange it right away. With that, he straightened his face and walked to the front desk, putting on a dignified look that a bureau chief should have. Mu Shi, who was standing at the side, could not help but feel a little depressed. It was no wonder that people were so unscrupulous when it came to power and fame. Thinking about it, she had stood before the front desk and pleaded with them in every possible way, but the receptionist had rejected her several times. She even called the police, but no one came. What about now? To put it bluntly, it was just that she did not have enough face. At this time, the receptionist had already called the lobby manager on duty and invited him over. With the bureau chief here, the rest of the matter was naturally much easier to handle. The CCTV room was on the second floor, so a group of people crowded around Mu Yaja as they walked to the elevator. When they passed by the elevator, the receptionist saw that there was no response from one of the elevators and muttered, "Is this elevator broken? Broken? Why is it broken?" The lobby manager's face turned ugly. He immediately went forward to test it, and it was indeed broken. "Get someone to fix it this morning." Yu frowned and suddenly asked, "Could it be that Mommy is trapped in the elevator?" Mu Shi was startled and was stunned. That seemed to be a possibility. Think about it. Mommy's phone can't be reached no matter what. Usually, there's no signal only in the elevator. Yu calmly analyzed the situation. At the side, the lobby manager's face turned ugly. How is that possible? If someone is trapped in the elevator, there are people on duty 24 hours a day in the CCTV room. They'll definitely discover it immediately. Maybe the person on duty in the CCTV room is dozing off like the receptionist. You retorted. The receptionist blushed. The lobby manager glared at her fiercely, but still tried to salvage the situation. "That can't be. Let's go to the CCTV room to take a look. We'll know." However, when the group reached the CCTV room's entrance, they saw 4 security guards playing cards in a corner with glowing faces. Rather than calling it a game of cards, it was more appropriate to call it gambling. The lobby manager was furious and scolded, "It's working hours now. What are you all doing?" The 4 of them were shocked. When they turned around, they saw the imposing and magnificent group. They stood up, trembling with fear, and awkwardly tried to smooth things over. The lobby manager still wanted to reprimand him, but Mu Yaja glanced at him. Chun Wei immediately understood and hurriedly said, "Don't waste time. Finding the person is more important. To the computer room." The computer room was very small and filled with machines. Hence, with Chun Wei and Mu Shi following behind, Mu Yaja carried Yu in. As soon as she walked in, Yu glanced at the screens and suddenly turned pale with fright. She pointed at one of the screens and said, "It's Mommy." Everyone looked in the direction she was pointing and saw Gu Xingze hugging Yun Shishir in the narrow elevator on the screen. The two were curled up in a corner. Yun Shishir seemed to be in a bad state. Even though the CCTV footage was a little blurry, one could still see her dispirited and listless look. Mu Yaja's heart skipped a beat. He walked to the front of the CCTV screen and pursed his lips into a cold line. His cold gaze swept behind him. His gaze was cold and intimidating. Chapter 829. Xingze is here, too. Mu Shi let out a yelp of surprise and went over to take a look. She, too, saw Yun Shishir's body curled up in the blanket as she shivered. Her heart ached for her. Oh, gosh! She got caught in the rain and was trapped in the elevator for so long. I wonder if she'll catch a cold. With that, she glared at the lobby manager angrily. Tears were about to fall from her eyes. "What's wrong with your hotel? The front desk is dozing off, and there's no one watching over the surveillance room. Even the security guards are playing cards. She's been trapped in the elevator for so long, and you don't even know. If anything happens to her, can you bear the responsibility? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The lobby manager apologized profusely, full of regret. Yaja ordered, "What are you waiting for? Hurry and contact the rescue team." "Yes, sir." The lobby manager hurriedly contacted the rescue team. Yu's little hand touched the screen. The love in her eyes was almost overflowing. Mommy, Yaja was still angry. He stood in front of the surveillance screen and watched Gu Xingze hugging Yun Shirshir tightly. His eyes suddenly narrowed dangerously. She was good at reading people's expressions. Seeing the coldness on his face, she immediately explained, "Xingze must be afraid that Shirshir will catch a cold, so he's hugging her. It's useless to say all this now. Saving people is more important," Yu calmly said from the side. She was secretly surprised and could not help but be impressed by this child's maturity and composure. By the time the rescue team and the fire department arrived, it was already dawn. The ambulance also hurried over. However, it was unknown who leaked the news, but the media caught wind of it. When they heard that Gu Xingze and Yun Shirshir were trapped in the elevator, they all squatted at the hotel's entrance to create headlines. Chun Wei immediately called for the police to prevent these reporters from interfering with the rescue. The maintenance staff of the elevator began to investigate the location of the elevator. The conclusion was that the elevator did not stop at the flat floor, but at the bottom. Yaja and the rest stayed in the surveillance room to check on the people's condition while the rescue team went to basement 3. When the elevator door opened, Shi hurriedly called out, "Xingze, Shirshir, are you guys there?" Inside the elevator, Gu Xingze heard Shi's call and immediately responded, "Here." Yun Shirshir, on the other hand, had a high fever and was unconscious. She did not have any reaction. "We're already thinking of a way to get you out." "Xingze, Shirshir, how are you?" Gu Xingze quickly replied, "I'm fine, but Shirshir has a high fever." "Hurry!" Shi was stunned and immediately pleaded, "Please quickly save him." All right, Miss, please calm down first. We'll get the equipment immediately." As the elevator stopped at the bottom, they first had to manually turn it to a position roughly parallel to the floor before they could save the people. Shi immediately said, "Xingze, Shirshir, be careful. We'll be able to get you out soon." "Okay." Gu Xingze immediately patted Yun Shirshir's cheek gently and said, "Shirshir, wake up, wake up. We'll be able to get out soon." Gu Xingze could not help but hug her tighter. He gently planted an encouraging kiss on her forehead, raised his face, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. Chapter 830. In the elevator room, 2 maintenance workers were setting up the winch mechanism to prevent the elevator from moving too quickly or accidentally when the brakes were released. The other used a mechanical method to loosen and tighten the brakes. When the brakes were released, the other 2 used their strength to pull the winch mechanism to slowly move the elevator upward. The elevator shook uneasily as the lights flickered. Yun Shirshir curled her body even tighter. The excessive shaking made her headache worse and made her dizzy. Every time there was a violent shaking, there would be a dead silence. Then there would be another tremor. In the control room, Yu was also looking at the scene on the screen anxiously. He suddenly raised his head and said to Yaja, "Daddy, let's go to basement 3. Mommy doesn't seem to be feeling well. I'm worried." "Okay." Yaja carried Yun Tianyu to basement 3. However, when they arrived, they did not see the medical team. Yu asked, and Shi immediately said, "I'll go take a look." Not long after, she hurried back and said, "The entrance is surrounded by reporters. The ambulance is blocked by a human wall, so it can't enter. Chief Chun has already sent more people over. reporters? Mu Yaja knitted his brows in displeasure. Mu, she said indignantly, yes, I don't know who leaked the news, but when the reporters heard that Gu Xingze and Yun Shishir were trapped in the elevator, they all rushed over to get a scoop. Yu also frowned and asked, where's the police? Mu, she said anxiously, there are too many reporters. Various media outlets have sent many people to snatch the news and report, so there's not enough police. On the other end, the elevator maintenance workers' walkie-talkie reminded them, soon, soon, soon. Be careful. A group of people gathered around the elevator. Then they heard a quang, and the elevator made a deep sound. The walkie-talkie said, it's in place. When the rescue team opened the elevator door, they saw Gu Xingze hugging Yun Shishir in the corner of the elevator. When he heard the commotion, he looked up and bumped into Mu Yaja. He was slightly stunned, but in the time he was in a daze, Mu Yaja had already strode into the elevator, picked up Yun Shishir from his arms, and left without looking back. Yu followed closely beside him and couldn't help but stand on her tiptoes to check on Yun Shishir's condition. Her small hand gently held her mother's hand, and her delicate eyebrows suddenly furrowed. Mommy has a high fever. Mu Yaja lowered his head and pressed his forehead against hers. Feeling the heat from her forehead, a trace of uneasiness appeared on his face. Mu, she glanced at Yun Shishir and then at Gu Xingze. She hurried in to help him up. Gu Xingze slightly dodged her attack. Mu, she froze in midair. She suddenly remembered that Xingze seemed to have a serious obsession with cleanliness and did not like excessive contact with others. At the thought of this, she looked slightly embarrassed and smiled with concern. Xingze, are you all right? Gu Xingze slowly stood up, but he had been squatting for too long. When he stood up, his body swayed slightly, and he felt a little dizzy. He wanted to chase after Yun Shishir to check on her condition, but Mu Yaja had already carried Yun Shishir away in a hurry. When he appeared at the door, with Yun Shishir in his arms, it caused a huge commotion. Chapter 831. Oh my God! Isn't that the CEO of Mu Group, Mu Yaja? What is he doing here? He's hugging Yun Shishir, and they look so intimate. This scene could not help but make people's imaginations run wild. The reporters discussed animatedly. I heard that Huan Yu banned Yan Bingqing some time ago. Rumor has it that Yan Bingqing bullied a newcomer in the crew. The newcomer in the crew of the Green Apple is Yun Shishir, who is a little more famous. Someone whispered, isn't there a rumor that Yun Shishir was able to sign a contract with Huan Yu's headquarters right after her debut because she has a sugar daddy backing her? Could this sugar daddy be Mu Yaja? It's very possible. The camera flashes were overwhelmed. The reporters scrambled to squeeze at the door and extended their microphones, asking loudly, CEO Mu, look here. I'm a reporter from Phoenix News Agency. May I know what relationship you have with Yun Shishir? What relationship do you have? CEO Mu, there are rumors that you have a close relationship with Yun Shishir. May I know what relationship you have with Shishir? Countless microphones were extended in front of him. The flashing lights were blinding. Mu Yaja hugged Yun Shishir expressionlessly. He completely ignored these aggressive interviews. How could the reporters let go of such an exciting piece of news? They stubbornly followed behind him. Some even formed a human wall in front of him, blocking his way. Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes. His handsome face was extremely gloomy, and he was about to explode. Yun Shishir nestled in his arms. There was a loud noise in her ears. So noisy, the flashing lights were so glaring that it made her eyes hurt. Mu Yaja lowered his head and saw her slightly uncomfortable expression. His eyes were tinged with coldness and sharpness. He swept his gaze across the surroundings. Suddenly, a biting cold aura spread out and froze everything. However, these professional reporters were not to be trifled with. They were not afraid of his terrifying expression at all, and still kept moving forward. Yu grabbed onto Mu Yaja's sleeves tightly, but she was still squeezed by the crowd. He had never seen such a congested scene. There were so many people in front and behind that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Questions came one after another, leaving no time for anyone to digest and understand the situation. Mushi had also arrived, but when she saw the crowd at the entrance, she was stunned. She subconsciously put on a professional smile and said, "Everyone, please don't crowd. Please be careful and don't crowd the entrance. Okay? The situation is critical now. Everyone, please make way. Please don't block the entrance. Okay?" As soon as he finished speaking, a man in the crowd shouted, "Don't change the subject. Yun Shirshir, please answer me directly. Are you Mu Yaja's mistress?" The sharp question caused the crowd to quiet down immediately. When Mushi heard this, the smile on her face froze. She stood rooted to the ground for a moment until the smile on her lips gradually turned cold. Yu's little face turned even paler. Even though he was young, he understood what the word mistress meant. Kept. Mistress? This was a blatant insult. The harsh question caused an uproar in the crowd. That man continued to press on. "Chairman Mu, does silence mean that you're admitting it?" After a moment of silence, the crowd burst into another round of questioning. Chapter 832. If the rumors are true, does that mean that you're a third party in your relationship with Mu Yaja? Yun Shirshir, I heard that you were adopted from Shingda Welfare Institute. Is that true? And the director of Shingda Welfare Institute, Luo Hanjin, was arrested for child molestation. The news said that many children in the Welfare Institute were victims. Have you ever been sexually assaulted? Yun Shirshir's eyelashes trembled slightly. She looked down and closed her eyes tightly. Her lips were stiff and her face was pale. The harsh voices echoed in her ears. The unbearable questions were asked again and again, but they were so sharp in the noisy world. Yu stood there in a daze, as if she had been petrified. She did not move. The flashes kept flashing in front of her eyes. Gradually, her vision went blank. Mommy is not a third party. What are these people talking about? Mu Yaja stood silently at the same spot and did not move an inch. His cold gaze swept across the crowd as his fists clenched tightly. Seeing that he had stopped in his tracks, the reporters swarmed forward and put their microphones to his mouth. "Daddy!" Yu opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her weak voice was instantly drowned out by the reporters' questions. Mu Yaja suddenly reached out and held her little hand tightly. Yu felt the warmth from his palm and felt inexplicably calm. Soon, 3 to 5 police cars rushed over. Chief Chun led the team to maintain order at the scene. The medical staff of the ambulance also rushed over. However, the reporters were blocked at the entrance like a wall and could not break through the crowd. Gushingza walked to the door and saw the scene in front of him. His face froze. He looked at the crowd at the entrance expressionlessly and narrowed his eyes. Seeing that Gushingza had also appeared, the reporters went crazy. The reporters rushed forward, and the flashes became more intense. The sound of the film rolling could be heard continuously. Shingza, look over here. Please share your views on Yun Shirshir. Shingza, look here. I'm a reporter from Starlight Daily. Mu Yaja suddenly said, "Scram." Even though his cold voice was deep, it was like an imperial edict that didn't allow anyone to question it. His gaze swept across the crowd. The coldness in his eyes caused people's hearts to palpitate. Some of the reporters who were close to him could not help but take a few steps back because of the murderous aura emanating from his body. Mu Yaja lifted his foot and was about to walk towards the ambulance when the reporter who had asked the sharp question earlier did not fear the cold aura he exuded. He squeezed to the front with no regard for his own safety and blocked his path with his camera. He extended his microphone. "Chairman Mu, you haven't answered my question yet." Mu Yaja suddenly stopped and glanced at him dangerously from the corner of his eyes. His lips curled into a cold and mocking smile. When the reporter saw that he had stopped, he quickly moved the microphone closer and asked a series of questions. "Please give a direct answer. May I ask if Yun Shirshir is your mistress?" Before he could finish his sentence, Mu Yaja kicked the reporter away expressionlessly. The latter was caught off guard and stumbled a few steps back before falling to the ground. The crowd was in an uproar. Mu Yaja hit someone. Chapter 833. The flashing lights instantly drowned them out. A reporter from a famous entertainment newspaper squeezed in front of them, raised his Canon-like DSLR, and started taking pictures of them. Mu Yaja turned his face dangerously. With a frown, he punched the camera lens and smashed it into pieces. He looked up expressionlessly. His aura was as cold as ice as he said coldly, "Shut up." The atmosphere quieted down. An eerie silence. Everyone froze on the spot. Time seemed to have stopped. Mu Yaja said in a low voice, "Move aside." As soon as he said that, everyone looked at each other and cowered. No one dared to step forward and obediently opened up a path. Yun Shirshir was hurriedly sent to the hospital. Preliminary diagnosis showed that she did not have any external injuries. However, due to the air conditioning and the fact that she did not change out of her soak clothes in time, the cold air invaded her body and caused her to have a high fever of 40 degrees Celsius. If it had been any later, she would have been in danger of contracting pneumonia. After sending Yun Shirshir to the hospital, Mu Yaja asked Yu and Mu Shi to stay in the ward to look after her and left in a hurry. The reporters who had surrounded the hotel entrance were also brought back to the police station and investigated for obstructing public order. With such a thing happening, Mu Yaja naturally would not let them off easily. These motley crew were all dismissed and blacklisted, unable to work in the media industry for the rest of their lives. Mu Yaja also got his men to delete all the photos taken. The results of the investigation showed that these reporters were a motley crew from some third-rate media companies who would do anything to get the news. It was said that the hotel staff leaked the news. They rushed over when they heard the news and squatted at the hotel entrance. Soon, the hotel staff who leaked the news was also found out. It was the hotel receptionist. The police came to take the receptionist away for investigation. Although Mu Yaja suppressed it in time, the news of Yun Shirshir interfering in a rich family's marriage spread like wildfire on the internet. The water army started spreading rumors on Weibo. The mysterious financier behind Yun Shirshir lifts his veil. It's Mu Yaja, the CEO of Dishing Financial Group. Explosion. The crown prince of the Mu Group is angry because of a woman. Yun Shirshir interferes with the marriage of a rich family. Is the rising star of the film industry the third wheel? Yan Bingqing was banned by Huanyu because she offended Yun Shirshir. The reason was that Yun Shirshir was the mistress of the Mu Group's crown prince. Yun Shirshir actually had an illegitimate child with Mu Yaja. Soon, these scandals were all over the internet. However, because most of the rumors seemed to be groundless, there was no real evidence to verify this matter. Therefore, netizens could only wait and see about this matter. Many people ran to Yun Shirshir's Weibo, wanting to leave comments for her. However, Mu Shi had foresight and blocked the comments section of Weibo at an extremely fast speed. However, she did not expect her actions to make it even more conspicuous. In an instant, The news of Yun Shirshir interfering in a rich family's marriage spread on the internet. It caused a storm and was confusing for a moment. Many netizens sighed with emotion. This Yun Shirshir, who had just debuted, seemed to have the effect of being a hot topic and had repeatedly topped the list of hot topics. Chapter 834. You scrolled through Weibo and saw that the rumors were spreading everywhere. He vaguely smelled something fishy. He felt that there was something fishy about this matter. Huanyu Entertainment had a monopoly on the media industry. However, the topics on Weibo were mostly directed toward Yun Shirshir and Mu Yaja. Huanyu Entertainment did not even make a move. This was indeed a little abnormal. Not to mention Mu Yaja, even Yun Tianyu could sense that something was fishy. After Mu Yaja was done with his work, he received a call from Mu Sheng asking him to hurry back to the Mu residence. He righteously said that he had an urgent matter to announce. He did not need to think to know what it was. Mu Yaja did not care about it at all. Yun Shirshir was still in the hospital, and he did not know what was going on. No matter how important the matter was, he had to put it aside first. Hence, after leaving the police station, he drove to the hospital. When he entered the ward, Yu was guarding by the bed. Yun Shirshir was asleep. She had changed into a clean hospital gown with the help of the nurse. At the same time, she used a hot towel to wipe her body. The 4-drip was already changed to the 4th bottle. Seeing him walk in, Yu's face showed dissatisfaction. Mu Yaja exchanged glances with him and easily caught the displeasure in his eyes. Without guessing, he knew what the little guy was unhappy about. He was different from other children and matured at a young age. Hence, when he was surrounded by reporters at the hotel entrance, those sharp words hurt both Yun Shirshir and him. "You're here." Yu glanced at him, his expression a little cold. "Have you settled everything?" "Yes, I have." Mu Yaja walked to the bedside and reached out to check the temperature of her forehead. After 3 bottles of 4-drip, the temperature had dropped, but the fever was still not completely gone. Yu did not intend to let the interrogation go just like that. He suddenly pulled his hand and led him to the balcony. Closing the door and leaning against it, the little guy's face was cold, and there was no need to hide the anger in his eyes. "What happened today made me very unhappy." With a short opening speech, the little guy went straight to the point. "I know that some media reporters are very unscrupulous, and that we shouldn't bother with their sharp and tricky questions. I also know that Mommy will have to face some rumors when she enters the entertainment industry, which is a place of trouble. This is not what I want to see, though. Okay." Mu Yaja waited for him to continue. His son was young, but the words he spoke were much more mature than an adult. "I heard someone asking you if Mommy is your mistress. I don't want to hear such a question a second time. You understand?" After a pause, Yu expressed his attitude. "If there's a next time, even if you don't do anything, I won't let it go. What will you do?" "You don't have to ask me what I will do. I won't interfere with you, and you don't have to ask me about my decision. I only want to tell you that I will only do what I think is right." His young voice revealed his determination. In his heart, he was thinking that if there were such unbearable rumors in the future, he might take action and get rid of Mu Wanru. Chapter 835. Making a person disappear from this world without leaving a trace was not a difficult task for him. Mu Yaja saw some clues in his son's eyes. It seemed that his son had some tricks up his sleeve. However, as a father, he naturally didn't want his son's hands to be stained with those unclean things. So he said, "Give me a month." "A month?" Yu was obviously unhappy with the number. He shook his finger and said, "I'll only give you half a month." Mu Yaja thought for a moment and said, "Okay." Yu said, "Daddy, don't let me down. After all, You're my daddy. You're an excellent man. Don't let my mommy get hurt again. Mu Yaja reached out and rubbed his son's hair. Then he heard the little boy say, "Seriously, I know why you haven't done anything yet." "What do you mean?" "You've seen through Mu Wanru's identity long ago. I know why you haven't done anything about it yet." Oh, Mu Yaja was surprised. He squatted down and looked into his son's eyes. "Tell me, what's the reason? You're waiting for the right time." Yu pointed out briefly. Mu Wanru is so weak that she can't even withstand a single blow. She must have some power behind her, since she could stay in the Mu family for so long. You haven't done anything yet because you want to lure the snake out of its hole. Isn't that right? Mu Yaja's face froze. He said, "The Mu family is a big family. Many people in the family are eyeing the position of the successor. Naturally, you have to clean up those who want to seize power to stabilize the family's morale." He changed the topic, "But how do you know?" "I'm not telling you." You kept him in suspense. He looked at the sky and said, "I'll only tell you that I've planted spies in the Mu family." Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes slightly. "Spies?" "Yes." "How long ago?" "It wasn't long ago, but we managed to obtain some reliable information. I only want to remind you that Mu Wanru and that person have already made their move. Over the past few days, Mu Wanru has taken advantage of her position to plant that person's men into the consortium's headquarters. I'm afraid she's going to do something secretly." Mu Wanru was the Human Resources Director of Disheng Financial Group. Mu Yaja glanced at him. This brat had some ability. "Daddy, as far as I'm concerned, the Mu family is nothing in my eyes. In my eyes, whether it's power or wealth. It's meaningless if I can't protect the people I love. In other words, if you let mommy get hurt, I won't forgive you no matter how powerful you are or how wealthy you are." Yun Tianyu did not care about a mere Mu family. Mu Yaja didn't care about it either. His current status and power were not entirely dependent on the Mu family. Outside of the Mu family, he already had his own empire, one that was on par with the Mu family's. In other words, he did not care about the inheritance of the Mu family that Mu Sheng mentioned. He originally wanted to wait until Grandpa Mu breathed his last before eliminating the remaining members of the Mu family one by one. In the past few days, that person had indeed lost his cool and was slowly giving himself away. Alas, that person was a sly old fox who hid his true colors well. It seemed that he had to hasten his actions. "Didn't you give me half a month's time?" Mu Yaja said, "It's a deal." Then, Chapter 836. Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes. His admiration for his son grew. It was as if the student had surpassed the master. This son of his would definitely be very capable in the future. He was so young, yet his mind was so complicated. He even knew how to play the tricks of a big family. In fact, this feeling was very unpleasant. His son seemed to know everything about him, but he couldn't figure out what kind of power was behind his precious son. "Stay at the hospital and accompany mommy. I'm going back to the Mu residence." Mu Yaja gave a few more instructions before leaving in a hurry. On the way back, he received a call from his grandfather, urging him to go home. He said that he had something important to announce. The important matter he was talking about was probably his engagement with Mu Wanru. These few days, the Muse had received news that Mu Sheng's health was deteriorating and his situation was getting worse. It was as if he knew that he did not have much time left and was about to die. He started to worry about his marriage with Mu Wanru and started to make arrangements for it. It was said that Grandpa Mu planned to hold the wedding within this month as soon as possible. He did not return to the Mu residence these few days, and Xiao Chen was arranged to stay in the condominium beside Disheng Financial Group. When he returned to the Mu residence, Mu Sheng saw him without batting an eyelid. Mu Wanru, on the other hand, was beside Mu Sheng. She kept her head down and secretly observed his expression from time to time. Mu Yaja glanced at her and happened to catch her secretly looking at him. His gaze was cold and deep. It was as sharp as a sword covered in snow, and it made her panic. She felt that no matter what she did, she could not escape his eyes. When Mu Yaja sat down, Grandpa Mu did not make any small talk. Instead, he went straight to the point. When do you plan to set the wedding date? His question left no room for negotiation. Before Mu Yaja could say anything, Grandpa Mu said, "Unhappily, Wanru is pregnant. Don't delay the wedding any longer. When the dust settles on your wedding date, Grandpa's heart will also be at ease. Aja, I don't care what you do outside, but you're not young anymore. It's time to settle down and start a family. Grandpa's only wish now is to see you marry Wanru. Only then can Wanru truly be considered a member of the Mu family. If Grandpa's body allows it, I'd like to see your child being born again. You've never disobeyed your grandfather. Grandfather's body may not be able to hold on for much longer. Stop fooling around. At least, fulfill Grandfather's last wish." His words were sincere. For him, Mu Wanru was only a member of the Mu family when she married into the family. He wholeheartedly wanted to give Mu Wanru a proper status as the young mistress of the Mu family. Mu Yaja looked up, his expression as cold as ice. Seeing his cold expression, Mu Sheng suddenly added, "If you really like that woman, it's not impossible. You can marry her as a concubine, too. That woman is called Yun Shirshir." Mu Sheng's eyes narrowed slightly. She should be a woman with some tricks up her sleeve. That was what he thought. After all, Mu Yaja had never had a woman by his side all these years. This lad seemed to be very cold when it came to women. However, Yun Shirshir was the first woman by his side. Chapter 837. This Yun Shirshir was definitely not simple. Mu Wanru, who was standing at the side, looked surprised. Mu Sheng actually relented and allowed Yun Shirshir to marry into the family as a concubine. She found it hard to believe. However, in fact, in the Mu family, only the head of the Mu family had such a privilege. Take Mu Sheng, for example. Other than his first wife, there were also his second and third wives. Although the three women were constantly fighting under the same roof, they appeared to be very harmonious on the surface. Other than that, Mu Sheng also had a few concubines outside. In ancient times, a concubine was a concubine. In fact, as a concubine in the Mu family, other than having a lower status than the first wife, there was no difference in other aspects. The only difference was that the few wives were legally married, while the concubines could not hold a wedding ceremony and could only marry into the family directly. After all, monogamy was now practiced. Even if the Mu family was rich for 100 years, some things could not be too ostentatious. However, allowing Yun Shirshir to marry into the family as a concubine was already the biggest concession he could make. After all, Grandpa Mu hated Yun Shirshir from the bottom of his heart. After all, for so long, no one could make Mu Yaja go against his wishes. Yun Shirshir, however, did it. Naturally, he hated her to the core. Mu Yaja merely chuckled when he heard that. His eyes were calm and unruffled, and no one knew what he meant by that. However, since Mu Sheng had already made his intentions clear, he intended to make a proper decision on this matter this time. "Grandpa, I remember that when I was still young, you arranged a marriage for me, right?" Mu Yaja looked at him as he said this. His interruption was so sudden that Mu Sheng did not react in time. "Don't you remember?" Mu Yaja paused for a moment before saying casually, "Although I was young, my mother told me that you arranged a marriage for me. I heard that the girl is from the capital's Song family." Song family? Mu Wanru obviously did not know about this. After all, this happened before she was taken into the Mu family. Mu Yaja said again, "The Mu family in the capital is a prestigious family. But after Mu Wanru returned to the Mu family, you didn't hesitate to offend the Song family's old man and canceled the engagement. Growing up in a wealthy family, marriage had been reduced to a bargaining chip. It was not something that they could decide. For example, the marriage between a father and a mother had nothing to do with romance or love. It was just a marriage between two families. The marriage between the two was nothing more than a paper deal between two wealthy families. What puzzled him, however, was that after Mu Wanru's return, Mu Sheng resolutely called off the engagement between the two families. This made old Master Song very embarrassed. Mu Sheng's face froze, but he did not say a word. Indeed, this did not seem to be his character. According to him, marriage was just a bargaining chip in exchange for fame, wealth, status, and power. Mu Wanru's mother, Mu Qingcheng, was just a singer. She did not have any maternal power to speak of. Mu Sheng's insistence on letting Mu Wanru marry into the Mu family, even making her the main wife, was indeed beyond everyone's expectations. Mu Yaja's eyes turned cold. "You keep saying that you want me to fulfill your wish. I just want to ask you what wish Grandpa wants me to fulfill by marrying this woman." Mu Sheng sealed his mouth tightly, unable to say a word. Chapter 838. This grandfather of his was in his twilight years and did not have many days left to live. As he grew older, he no longer had that much ambition. Before he died, he only wanted to fulfill his unspoken wish. That was his unfulfilled wish for Mu Qingcheng. His love for her was no longer in the category of adoptive father and daughter. There was even a time when he wanted to marry her as his wife, but she already had someone else in her heart. Alas, he had always been very possessive. How could he tolerate the woman he loved having someone else in her heart? Hence, there was a time when he wanted to force her to submit. Although she was a singer, her character was chaste, so how could she submit? In the end, she could not stand his perverted possessiveness and fled the Mu family with her pregnancy. The Muse sent out countless men to search for her. They could not wait to turn the capital upside down to catch her. However, when they finally found her, she was already a cold corpse. This car accident was laughable. If she had not been trying to avoid the men sent by the Muse, how could she have gotten into an accident? His heart was filled with self-blame and guilt. Feeling as if a knife was being twisted in his heart, he fell ill and was bedridden for a long time. In the end, this wish fell on Mu Wanru. Even if he could not marry her, at least he could let her daughter marry into the Mu family. This could be considered as fulfilling his wish. It was because of his perverted obsession that Mu Yaja did not bring Yun Shishir back to the Mu family. He dared not imagine what crazy things his grandfather would do if he saw Yun Shishir, who looked almost identical to her. Moreover, the Mu family was in turmoil with constant infighting. He had to tread carefully to get to where he was today. Therefore, he had been waiting for an opportunity to personally wipe out the traitors within the Mu family. Before that, he would not let Yun Shishir take even half a step into this tiger's den. After a long silence, just as he was about to speak, Mu Yaja suddenly asked, "Grandpa, are you determined to make me marry this woman?" Mu Wanru bit her lower lip and gently rested her hand on his shoulder. Mu Sheng looked up and placed his withered hand on the back of her hand. He looked at Mu Yaja and said, "Grandpa, haven't you already taken a step back? If you have any woman you like outside, you can marry her and make her your concubine. As for Wanru, she must be the young madam of the Mu family. There is no room for discussion on this point. Since Grandpa said so, Mu Yaja suddenly said, "Then I'll do as grandfather says." His words gave the old man a shock. He originally thought that his grandson would still resist him, but he didn't expect him to agree so quickly. He had resisted so fiercely earlier, but now, instead, Mu Sheng felt that Mu Yaja's docile attitude was somewhat abnormal. Mu Wanru was also stunned. She did not expect Mu Yaja to agree to marry her. Mu Yaja did not look at them. He just casually took out a cigarette box and lit it. "Since it's Grandpa's wish, I won't fight for it anymore. Besides, you're already old. My only wish is for my marriage to be settled according to your wishes. Since Grandpa likes her, I'll marry her." Mu Sheng and Mu Wanru were completely dumbfounded. Mu Wanru, in particular, had a comical expression on her face. Chapter 839. The old man was the first to react. You're really willing to marry Wanru? There's no need to doubt my words." Mu Yaja pursed his thin lips. "Grandpa, you know that I'll do what I say." He was a man of his word. This was his grandson's attitude towards the world. He had no doubts about this. "Great." Overjoyed, he immediately said, "That's great. Since you're willing to marry Wanru, Grandpa is naturally happy." With that, he held Mu Wanru's hand tightly, unable to hide the joy on his face. "That's great. I'm afraid that the Mu family will have double happiness in no time. Since that's the case, I'll quickly get someone to make arrangements. The wedding can't be delayed any longer. We should at least announce it to the media first. Then Grandpa will get someone to pick an auspicious date for your wedding." According to tradition, after the wedding date was set, the Mu family would hold a grand press conference and invite business and political celebrities, aristocrats, and various media outlets to witness it. After that, they would hold the grand wedding of the century. Compared to his joy, Mu Wanru's smile seemed a little forced. That was because she did not believe that Mu Yaja would really marry her. Ever since she reached an agreement with Mu Yaja that day, she no longer had any illusions about marrying him. Mu Lianjue had promised her an inexhaustible supply of wealth after the deed was done. Hence, she was willing to follow his instructions. Not only did she plant his men in Dixing's headquarters, she even poisoned Mu Sheng's medicine. In the entire Mu family, she was the only one who could do this. Now, however, Mu Yaja actually said that he was willing to marry her. Didn't that mean that she would become the young mistress of the Mu family soon? Everything seemed like a dream. It was unbelievably beautiful. Why would Mu Yaja be willing, though? Not to mention other things, just the fact that she was pregnant and the child in her belly was not his, yet he was still willing to marry her. This was the greatest humiliation to a man. "Grandpa, there's one thing you must do, though. Don't forget what you promised me earlier." Mu Yaja's words were concise, but Grandpa Mu understood and nodded. "Don't worry. Grandpa will give it to you before the wedding. The Mu family's power." Although Mu Yaja was the heir of the Mu family and had the right to inherit, this power was different from the inheritance. The Mu family's power symbolizes the highest authority. Only the patriarch had the right to do so. Mu Sheng had once promised him that if he married Mu Wanru, he would pass the family head position to him. Generally speaking, given Mu Sheng's character, he would not hand over the Mu family's authority unless he was on his deathbed. After all, in a family like the Mu clan's power meant supreme power. If one had the Mu clan's power, it meant that the Mu clan had the power to control life and death. Many people coveted it. Think about it. If Mu's families to be Mu's, to the family to have the families to be, the family's morale would be unstable, and he would not be able to rest until his death. If it were someone else, he might not agree. Mu Yaja, on the other hand, was his most trusted grandson. Grandpa Sheng, on the other hand, trusted him. Chapter 840. Oh, although she was unwilling, she could not pry any further from his stern words. After a moment of silence, the old man said, "How about this? I'll announce it on the day you and Wanru get married." Mu Yaja replied, "Since that's the case, I'll go make the arrangements now." "Okay." The old man nodded in relief and did not say anything else. Mu Yaja went upstairs. Mu Wanru hurriedly chased after him. "Je." He stopped in his tracks and slowly turned around, only to see her standing behind him bashfully with a complicated expression. She was stammering and hesitating to speak. "What's the matter?" "Mu Yaja, are you really willing to marry me?" Mu Wanru asked hesitantly. Her eyes were filled with disbelief and even unconcealable suspicion. Mu Yaja glanced at her, but his eyes were cold and indifferent. Hearing her question, he raised a brow impatiently. Mu Wanru quickly explained, "I don't mean anything else. I'm just curious. After all, you said that you won't marry me. It's really surprising that you've changed your mind." "What's so surprising about that?" Mu Wanru laughed and said, "I'm just too happy, so happy that I'm still a little doubtful. I don't believe that you're really willing to marry me. I still feel like I'm living in a dream." Mu Yaja remained silent. Mu Wanru could not help feeling awkward, but she still wanted to clarify this matter. After all, the love she had for Mu Yaja was hard to let go. "If you marry me, then what about Yun Shirshir?" she asked carefully. Mu Yaja coldly replied, "You have no right to mention her." Mu Wanru's face was suddenly filled with disappointment. She said in shame, "Yes, I know. I know that it's already my greatest honor that you're willing to marry me. Other than that, I won't ask so much from you. But if you really want to marry me, I swear I will learn how to be a qualified young mistress of the Mujia. But do you really not mind my past?" Her mind was in a mess. She always suspected that Mu Yaja didn't marry her for such a simple reason. Therefore, she wanted to find out more about it. After all, Mu Yaja was extremely shrewd. This man's thoughts were unpredictable. She couldn't figure it out no matter how hard she tried. She always felt that his decision wasn't that simple. "Mind what?" Mu Yaja's cold eyes fell on her body. "I married you because grandfather ordered me to. I don't want to disobey. As for the rest, you don't have to ask." Mu Wanru was shocked. Mu Yaja said, "Besides, you've always taken good care of Grandpa, no matter how big or small. Since it's Grandpa's wish, then I will comply." You married me, then do you like me?" Even if it was just a little bit, it made her so happy that she couldn't control herself. But he coldly asked, "What does my marriage with you have to do with whether I like you or not?" Mu Wanru choked. "I know that you married me because of grandfather's order. It has nothing to do with romance or love. I also know that I let you down, but in the future, I will try my best to play my role. It's good that you know." Mu Yaja finished and turned away. Mu Wanru, on the other hand, stood rooted to the spot. Her heart was in a mess. She went back to her room and sat on the bed, but she felt that her thoughts were in a mess. Chapter 841. Initially, she had been following the man's plan in an orderly manner. Now, however, things seemed to have taken a turn for the worse. Since Mu Yaja was willing to marry her, it meant that she would soon be the real young mistress of the Mu family. This meant that she should be on the same side as Mu Yaja and Mu Lianjue's enemy. Should she still carry out the man's plan? Then Mu Wanru was in a terrible fix from the series of events. On second thought, Since Muyaja was willing to marry her, she must stand on his side and do her best to protect his position. After all, if Muyaja married her, they would share honor and disgrace together. If Muyaja lost his position because of Muyaja, she would be in deep trouble. Still, she did not know what Muyaja was thinking. She felt that this man was unfathomable. Hence, Mu Wanru was a little hesitant. Alas, the Muse were busy preparing for the wedding these few days. On this day, Aaron suddenly found her. The two of them agreed to meet in a secret place. When he saw her, the first thing he said was, "Wanru, come with me. Let's go far away from this troublesome place. Aaron, don't look for me anymore. In the future, we'll return to how we were before. I'm Muyaja's fiancé, and you're his assistant," Mu Wanru said coldly. "Fiancé?" He burst into laughter. "Wanru, what are you talking about? Are you talking in your sleep? Fiancé? Do you really think that Muyaja will marry you?" Mu Wanru smirked. "Why not? He said that he'll marry me on a date. He's already making arrangements for it." He was stunned. "How is that possible?" "Why not? He's already promised Grandpa. The entire Mu family is making arrangements to announce our marriage." Mu Wanru could not hide her smugness. Aaron sneered. "Impossible. Nothing is impossible. You're just unwilling to accept it. Do you really think that Muyaja is that stupid? Wanru, think about it. Does he really intend to marry you? Putting aside your identity, you're pregnant now. You can fool Mu Sheng, but can you fool Muyaja? Will he marry a woman who's pregnant with another man's child?" Mu Wanru's heart skipped a beat. "Why not? He's marrying me because he doesn't want to go against Grandpa's order." "Huh, don't think he's too great." Alan retorted. "He's definitely not a simple man. Wanru, don't let your guard down. Maybe he's set a trap for you and is waiting for you to jump into it. The Muse are a dragon's pool and a tiger's den. Muyaja has his current status at such a young age. To be able to become an outstanding man in a place like the Muse, you can imagine what he's been through. Do you really think that he's a simple man? In fact, he's more unfathomable than you think." Mu Wanru's heart skipped a beat when she heard that. "Come with me. Running away with me is the best choice for you right now." He extended his hand to her and opened his palm. Mu Wanru was in a daze for a moment and unexpectedly extended her hand to him. Seeing that she seemed to have changed her mind, his face lit up. However, Mu Wanru slapped his hand away harshly. Chapter 842. Alan's face froze. "Why? I won't go with you. Just give up on it," Mu Wanru said. "I believe in Muyaja because he does what he says. Since he said that he will marry me, then he will definitely marry me." After that, she was about to leave. However, Alan took a step forward and hugged her tightly. "Don't go." He almost put down all his dignity and hugged Mu Wanru. His whole body was trembling. "Wanru, I really love you. Although I can't give you wealth, I will work hard and use my hands to create a stable life for you. Wanru, I really love you. My heart has never changed. For you, I entered the Mu group. For you, I did so many evil things for you. But now you want to leave me. Wanru, is your heart so hard? Stop talking. So disgusting." Mu Wanru struggled to get out of his arms. However, Alan hugged her so tightly that she almost suffocated. She screamed hysterically, "Ellen, I can't be with you. I was born as a member of the Mu family, and I will die as a ghost of the Mu family. Just give up." Aaron was taken aback. While he was in a daze, Mu Wanru stepped on his foot harshly and left his embrace. She turned around and glared at him coldly and resolutely. "I don't like you at all. I never liked you. I've only been using you from the beginning to the end. Do you know? I don't like you at all." Haven't you given up? After shouting, she tried to calm down the anger in her chest. She tidied herself up and said to him, Alan, I've kept you until now because I care about your feelings for me. You'd better disappear from my sight now and never appear again. Otherwise, I won't let you go. Her words were unusually ruthless. In other words, if he still did not know his place, she would kill him and get rid of him to prevent future troubles. Alan was shocked by her ruthless warning. He could not help but widen his eyes. Wanru, why are you so heartless? Since you know I'm heartless, why don't you disappear from my sight? Okay, I'll disappear. Alan lowered his head in a daze. Like an empty puppet, Wanru snorted and walked out of the alley. However, just as he got into the car and started, he still didn't see Alan walk out of the alley. Just as she was feeling suspicious, she suddenly heard a gunshot. Even though the gunshot had been silenced, it was very quiet and there was no one around. Therefore, she immediately caught the faint sound. His heart skipped a few beats. She got out of the car and walked to the entrance of the alley, but what she saw made her heart palpitate. Alan leaned against the rugged wall, his eyes wide open, his face pale, and his weak body slowly slid down the wall. Dark red blood splattered on the wall. At Alan's temple, there was a bloody hole that was gurgling with blood. The man who had just asked her to run away with him had now turned into a cold corpse. One of the men in black put away his gun. Suddenly sensing something, he turned his head and bumped into Wanru head-on. The man in black's face was cold, and his eyes were full of murderous intent. Wanru screamed, and almost fell to the ground in fright. Chapter 843. Wanru did not know how many red lights she had run along the way. It was only when she reached the city center that she stopped the car by the roadside. The scene she saw earlier gave her a huge shock. She held the steering wheel and clutched her thundering chest, unable to calm down for a long time. What exactly happened just now? She seemed to have seen Aaron being killed. Who was it? What was going on? Wanru found it hard to calm down. Just as she was feeling tense, her phone suddenly rang. Wanru was so shocked by the sudden ringing that she almost lost her soul. After forcing herself to calm down quickly, she picked up the phone with trembling hands. It was an unknown number on the screen. Having just received a huge shock, she could not help feeling jittery. It was only after a long while that she picked up the call. Hello, it's me. Lianjue's gloomy voice came through. Wanru inexplicably calmed down upon hearing his voice. Fourth uncle, it's you. Wanru, you're really hopelessly stupid. He suddenly cursed. That Aaron knows everything about you. He can't be left alive, yet you still let him live. At the mention of Aaron, Wanru was taken aback. She carefully probed. Did you send someone to kill Aaron just now? It's me. Do you think that I'm as stupid as you? How could I leave such a big scourge alive? He paused. Not only does he know everything about you, but he's also not smart. If he lets the cat out of the bag and gets caught by Yaja, you'll be finished. Wanru was still of great use to him now, so he must protect this chess piece of Wanru. Wanru, on the other hand, was stunned. It was really him who killed him. She tried hard to maintain a calm expression, but she was shocked once again by his ruthlessness. Suddenly realizing something, she questioned in astonishment. Fourth uncle, are you following me? She had purposely chosen a secluded place for her meeting with Aaron, where there was hardly anyone within a few miles. Unless he had sent someone to follow her deliberately, he would not. It was terrifying to think about it. This man was indeed a sly old fox. Him following her clearly showed that he did not trust her. I'm following you. He did not deny it. That's because I'm worried. If anything happens to you, it'll hinder me. Wanru, I'm warning you. If you hinder me in the slightest, I'll get rid of you. You understand? Mu Wanru's lips trembled in shock. In the rearview mirror, her face was frighteningly pale. When she thought of Alan's miserable death, she felt an inexplicable sadness and pain in her heart. In fact, she still had some conscience at least. Aaron truly loved her, and was even willing to betray Muyaja for her. Alan's persistent and solemn words still echoed in her ears, saying that he would take her far away and give her a stable and peaceful life. However, in the blink of an eye, his pitiful look flashed before her eyes. Feeling uncomfortable all over, she covered her mouth in grief. I must speed up my plan. Chapter 844. When this old thing hands over the Mu family's power, you'll still act according to my plan. You understand? His tone was firm and did not give her any room to resist. Mu Wanru only replied, I understand. Recalling something, she cautiously asked, Fourth uncle, you promised me that you'll get rid of Yun Shirshir and Yun Tianyu. You don't have to ask about this matter. Even if you don't ask, I'll get rid of them. Mu Wanru's heart finally settled at his words. Mu Lianjue gave a few more instructions before hanging up the call. Mu Wanru stared ahead in a daze. Her hand loosened, and the phone slipped onto the seat. Now, she suddenly felt a little paranoid. The man's words just now made her hair stand on end. She felt that every passerby in this huge downtown area was someone he had sent to tail her. Mu Wanru gritted her teeth, held the steering wheel, stepped on the accelerator, and sped away. After 2 days of being on the drip, Yun Shirshir's fever was almost gone. When she woke up in the morning, Mushi had already prepared porridge and sent it over. Yu was by her bedside. He had been accompanying her in the hospital for the past 2 days. Seeing that she had woken up, he hurried over and placed his small hand on her forehead. When her fever finally subsided, a gratified smile appeared on his face. Mommy, your fever is finally gone. Yun Shirshir's lips were dry. She opened her mouth, but a hoarse voice came out. Yu hurriedly passed her a glass of water and raised the bed so that she could lean against it and sit up. Yun Shirshir drank a few mouthfuls of water, and the discomfort in her throat subsided a lot. She could not help but sigh. Fruits were really the source of life. It felt as if her mental strength had come alive. Mommy, I really don't know what to do with you. Yu said helplessly. You've been hospitalized twice in just a month. Are you having bad luck this year? Yun Shirshir felt wronged and said, Yeah, I'm so unlucky to have encountered an elevator malfunction. How unlucky. You pouted helplessly. Taking the porridge Mushi had cooked for him, he sat by the bed and fed her spoonful by spoonful. Yun Shirshir had a lot of feelings in her heart. On the first night in the hospital, although she was unconscious, she could still feel that Yu had gotten up in the middle of the night to cover her with a blanket. It was better to sweat more when one had a fever. And when she felt hot, sometimes she couldn't take it anymore. So she kicked off the quilt. Yu patiently got up and covered her up again for the next 2 days. Even She sighed. It was a great blessing to have such a filial son. Yun Shirshir was well aware of this. Hence, when she looked at Yu, the guilt in her heart almost overwhelmed her. Seeing the unconcealable guilt on her face, Yu pretended to be relaxed and said, Mommy, what's with that look? Yu, it must be hard for you to take care of Mommy like this. Of course. Mommy always kicks off the quilt at night. This is a terrible habit. You're sick now, yet you don't know your place. You must not have slept well these 2 days, right? Yun Shirshir was about to cry from self-reproach. How could she be so lousy? How could she let her son worry about her all the time? This feeling was terrible. I didn't sleep well. Well, that's why I'm a little sleepy now, Yu said as he rubbed his eyes. He indeed did not sleep well these few nights. Chapter 845. If you're tired, let's sleep for a while more, okay? You wants to sleep with mommy. Yun Shirshir immediately carried him to the bed, covered him with the blanket, and hugged him. You nestled in her arms. When his little hand touched her skin, it was wet and sticky. He couldn't help but frown in disgust. Mommy, you're sweating so much. It stinks. Yun Shirshir pretended to be wronged and said, Baby, you actually think mommy stinks. Humph. Why would you dislike stinky mommy? As he spoke, he yawned. Little Munchkin couldn't take it any more. He didn't tell Yun Shirshir that he hadn't slept properly for 2 days and 2 nights. Other than worrying about her, he was afraid that she would kick the blanket and catch a cold. Of course, this was only part of the reason. The main reason was that he was thinking about something. As for what it was, he naturally wouldn't mention it to Yun Shirshir. Hence, he didn't sleep well. Hence, when his head hit the pillow, he fell asleep very quickly and let out a sweet snoring sound. In the past, he would always sleep quietly. Even his breathing was so soft that it was almost inaudible. However, at this moment, perhaps he was really tired. Even his breathing was a little heavy when he slept. Yun Shirshir's heart ached as she hugged him tighter. She also fell asleep peacefully with him in her arms. The two of them didn't wake up until nighttime. Hence, when Muyaja carried Xiao Yichen into the ward, he frowned slightly when he saw Yun Shirshir and Yu sleeping in each other's arms. It was almost nighttime. Why weren't they awake yet? The ward wasn't air-conditioned, and there was no fan. Only a small window was open for ventilation. Although the summer was over, the weather was still hot. There was no air conditioning in the ward, and they were still wrapped in blankets. Hence, when Muyaja walked to the bedside, he saw that Yun Shirshir's forehead was covered in sweat. It was obvious that he had perspired a lot. Yu was no exception. He was drenched in sweat, but even though it was so hot, the two of them were still in a deep sleep. Even when Xiao Yichen accidentally bumped into the bedpost and made quite a bit of noise, they did not wake up. He hadn't come over for the past few days. Now that the heavy work on his hands had temporarily come to an end, he pushed everything aside. Little Yichen was also clamoring for his mommy, so he brought him along. Muyaja walked to the bedside and sat down. He reached out his hand and touched her forehead. She had sweated so much and had been on the drip for the past 2 days. Naturally, her fever had subsided. He was happy to see her recover from her illness. This woman was really troublesome. She had entered the palace twice just to film a movie. There was nothing he could do about her. Yun Shirshir was awakened by his movements. She opened her eyes slightly. When her vision cleared, she saw that it was him. Her eyes widened, and she immediately said in a hoarse voice, "You're here?" The moment she spoke, little Munchkin in her arms woke up as well. He seemed to be still sleepy as he rubbed his eyes in a daze. His sleepy eyes widened slightly. When he saw that it was Muyaja, he was stunned for a moment before calling out softly, "Daddy!" Muyaja pulled him into his arms and gently stroked his messy hair. "You've been accompanying me in the hospital for the past few days. Did you not sleep well?" You nodded and yawned loudly. "I'm awake," he said in a childish voice. From afternoon to night, he had slept for a total of 7 hours. It was time to wake up. Chapter 846. He wondered if he would be able to sleep at night if he slept like this. Yu saw the smile on his father's face and seemed to be infected by his smile. He couldn't help but smile as well. For the father and son pair who had always been at each other's throats, this was probably the warmest and most harmonious scene in history. Yu seemed to have accepted him from the bottom of his heart and no longer resisted his touch. He even called him Daddy willingly. In the past, if it weren't for Muyaja's threats, he wouldn't have called him daddy. Can you do your brother a favor? Xiao Yichen suddenly came over shamelessly with a fawning smile on his face. Yu glanced at him and saw the fawning smile on his face. He didn't have to think twice to know that he had a favor to ask of him. His elder brother had a favor to ask of him, but he couldn't possibly agree so quickly, could he? Hence, Yu pouted and said, I'm not helping you. Why? Xiao Yichen pouted pitifully and said, Actually, the favor I'm asking of you is really a small matter for you. It's a piece of cake for you. I can't help you for free. Yu suddenly rubbed his flat stomach and rolled his eyes. He smiled mischievously and said, How about this? You treat me to a big meal, and I'll help you. A big meal? Wasn't that a small matter? Xiao Yichen agreed immediately. Okay, it's a deal then. Okay, tell me, what do you need help with? Hee. Xiao Yichen smiled and passed the arithmetic book in his hand to him. There are a few questions that I need your help with. Yun Shirshir was so amused that she laughed out loud. These two little fellows were really too interesting. Mu Yage's expression froze for a moment. How could he say that he felt embarrassed? As the older brother, he had to ask his younger brother for some simple arithmetic questions. Yu's lips twitched as he took the arithmetic book from his brother's hand. Although it was just a few questions, when he opened the book, he saw that it was full of multiplication and division. In addition to the arithmetic book, there were more than 10 English translation questions. Xiao Yichen went to Allen Bell Bilingual Kindergarten. Although it was a kindergarten, the teaching style was very strict. The school insisted on letting the children win at the starting line. They had already started to learn some questions that were only taught in primary school. Therefore, most kindergartens only to count addition and subtraction, subtraction and multiplication and division were taught. This was difficult for little Yichen. He rubbed his head for a long time and only felt a splitting headache. As for addition and subtraction, it was fortunate that he could count them one by one with his fingers. But when it came to multiplication and division, even if you counted your toes, you wouldn't be able to do it. Little Yichen grumbled, I hate math the most. It's not fun at all. To do. You're so stupid. These questions are so easy, but you can't even solve them. If Xiao Yichen saw you use usual extracurricular exercises, he would probably collapse at the desk and foam at the mouth. Xiao Yichen seemed to understand the disdain in Yu's eyes. He held his heart in pain and said, Brother, you despise me. That's for sure. Sob, Xiao Yichen cried as he collapsed on the sofa. Yu took the exercise book and scanned through the questions. It was so simple that it made one's hair stand on end. Xiao Yichen eagerly handed over a pen. However, he did not expect Yu to take the pen from him and fill in the answers almost immediately after reading the questions. Chapter 847. Xiao Yichen felt that in the blink of an eye, Yu had already thrown the neatly filled arithmetic book to him. I'm done. You're so fast? He was in disbelief. Yu answered matter-of-factly, Of course. These questions are too easy. Xiao Yichen's eyes went blank for a moment before he hurriedly flipped through the book to see if he had just filled in the answers half-heartedly. However, he casually picked a few answers and checked them with much effort. They were all correct. For a moment, Xiao Yichen could not believe his eyes. He felt that Yun Tianyo's calculation speed was unbelievable. How did he do it? How did he finish it so quickly? Xiao Yichen passed the English book to him. There were only a few translation questions left. Yu gave him a look of disdain before he swept through the questions like a whirlwind. Xiao Yichen's mouth was so wide open that 2 eggs could be stuffed in it. Yu reached out to lift his chin and manually closed his mouth. I'm done. That's amazing. Xiao Yichen exclaimed from the bottom of his heart in disbelief. He was waiting for Yu to be trapped by these annoying questions so that he could embarrass him. In the end, he finished it so quickly. He did not even know if it took him more than 5 minutes to finish it. Do you think I'm you? Yu looked proud. Despite his disdainful words, Xiao Yichen's praise was very pleasing to his ears. He raised his chin proudly. You're so good. Yun Shishir was also stunned by the speed at which he swept through the questions. She did not know that her precious son was so good at studying. Of course, Yu's little tail wagged. I'm much smarter than Xiao Yichen. Yes, little brother, you're so smart. I spent half a day trying to solve these questions, but you finished them in just a few minutes. You're amazing. Xiao Yichen complimented him again. Yu felt as if she was floating in the air and was about to fly into the sky. Muyasha pulled him down in time. Are you hungry? Yes. Yu nodded. I'm starving. I haven't even had dinner yet. Muyasha glanced at Yun Shishir with some resentment. Yun Shishir immediately raised her hands in surrender. I was wrong. I didn't take good care of you. Sob. Mommy, you know it too? As for me, I don't need you to take care of me. You just need to take care of yourself. You snorted, but there was a gentle and doting smile on her face. Xiao Yichen hooked his arm around his shoulder and patted his chest. Let's go. Big brother will treat you to a big meal. Thus, the two little guys went out to have fun with their arms around each other's shoulders. Yun Shishir was so amused that she rolled over on the bed and laughed. How did she give birth to these two clowns? One looked cold and aloof on the surface, but was actually a little joker. The other looked gentle and refined on the surface, but was actually a big tsundere. Muyasha sat on the bed and hugged the lazy and cute little woman in his arms. He saw that her body under the hospital gown was covered in sweat. She must have perspired a lot. This woman probably hadn't showered for 2 days. Yun Shishir suddenly calmed down when he hugged her like this. They hadn't seen each other for a few days, but she could easily feel the deep emotions in his cold and deep eyes. They were surging and intertwining in the dark. No matter how stupid she was, it wasn't difficult for her to see that the man was trying hard to suppress something at this moment. Chapter 848. Muyasha lowered his gaze and looked at the little woman in his arms, who was like a lazy cat. His eyes darkened as he swept his gaze downwards. She was wearing a hospital gown with the collar slightly open. At a glance, one could see the great view hidden under the hospital gown. The man's gaze deepened slightly. He reached out and lifted her collar. Yun Shishir immediately slapped his hand away and said, not knowing whether to laugh or cry, "What are you doing? Don't peek." "I haven't seen that part of your body," the man said righteously. Yun Shishir was annoyed. "Muyasha, how many days have you not showered?" "Oh." Yun Shishir's face turned redder as she said awkwardly, "It's been 2 days." Then Muyasha paused. He suddenly got up and carried her in a princess carry. Lowering his head, he breathed in her fragrance. "Let's shower together." She widened her eyes abruptly and wanted to push him away in embarrassment. Her face was burning. "No." "Why not?" She shook her head and pursed her lips. Her face was so red that it looked as if blood could drip out. "If Yu and Yichen come back and see this, it won't be good. They won't be back for a while." Muyasha said with certainty, an unfathomable smile on his face. Yun Shishir was stunned. At first, she was still a little confused. However, when she saw the deep smile in his eyes, she suddenly understood. Muyasha must have colluded with Xiao Yichen. Xiao Yichen must have taken you away under Mu Yaja's instructions to create private space for him. She angrily said, "Great, you and your father actually colluded in secret." Before she could finish her words, Mu Yaja lowered his head and kissed her lips, stopping her from speaking. Yun Shishir was startled by the sudden kiss. The man's kiss was urgent and deep. He hadn't touched her for a few days, and every part of his body was constantly missing her, clamoring for her. He couldn't control himself, no matter how hard he tried. After all, he hadn't touched her for a long time, so his kissing skills were a little rough and clumsy. There were a few times when their lips touched, and it hurt her. Yun Shishir groaned in pain. She clenched her fists and punched his muscular shoulders in protest. However, her insignificant protest was naturally ignored by him. He carried her into the bathroom and put her down. Yun Shishir wanted to run away as soon as she could. But would he give her this chance? That was obviously impossible. He grabbed her back and pressed her against the wall. His tall body leaned forward and easily trapped her in this weak world. The man leaned his head against her forehead and pressed it against the tip of her nose. His voice was so gentle that it seemed like it could drip water. "I miss you." He missed her very much. His clear and mellow breath brushed against her ear, burning her cheeks red. Yun Shishir shyly turned her face away. His hazy and hoarse mumbling was extremely magnetic, yet it could make one's heart skip a beat without warning. The man grabbed her chin and forced her to meet his gaze. "Did you miss me?" He questioned her directly, but it made her face even hotter. How could this man be so evil? "No," Yun Shishir said stubbornly, avoiding his gaze. Mu Yaja was naturally dissatisfied with this answer. His hand gently pinched her waist, which was no match for his. Coincidentally, he grasped her sensitive spot. Yun Shishir let out a weak moan as she was at a loss of what to do. Chapter 849. Mu Yaja's tall and slender body pressed against her, not giving her any way out. He asked again, "Did you miss me, HM?" "Yes, yes." Yun Shishir saw his dark eyes and did not dare to provoke him, so she told him the truth. However, her face was already unbelievably red. Mu Yaja, however, was very satisfied with her reaction. He could not help but lightly touch her alluring red lips. As if he could not get enough of this delicacy with a single kiss, he pressed his cold, thin lips against hers. The tip of his tongue gently traced the shape of her lips, tasting her sweetness. He repeatedly touched her lips like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water, kissing her lips clean. He pressed his lips against hers and asked again, "What did you miss about me?" Yun Shishir looked up shyly, but her eyes met with his dark eyes. There was no need to hide the depth in his eyes. "Mu Yaja, stop fooling around. It won't be good if the babies come back and see us." She didn't even dare to think about it. What if you and Xiao Yichen suddenly came back and saw this scene that was inappropriate for children? Aya, Yun Shishir only felt ashamed. Her face was so hot that it looked like it was about to bleed. Just thinking about it made her so embarrassed that she wanted to hide in a hole. "You don't have to care about them. Care about me first, HM?" The man naturally wouldn't allow her to evade the topic. Holding her delicate chin, he couldn't help but kiss her delicate jade-like neck. She couldn't help but groan. She completely lost control and immediately bit her lips hard to control herself from making a sound. Her deliberate suppression made him unhappy. His muscular and tall body, which was unique to men, came close to her. "Not going to say it, HM?" His voice was deep and magnetic. Her heart skipped a beat. For a moment, she even lost control of her breathing and felt suffocated. Sure, tell me, what did you miss about me? I want to hear it." Muyaja kissed her ear and sucked on her round earlobe. Like an electric shock, it spread through her limbs and bones, making her feel numb. How could this man be so vile? Yun Shirshir, on the other hand, was like a rebellious young girl. Whatever he wanted to hear, she would not say. The man finally lost his patience. With one hand on her shoulder, he impatiently tore her hospital gown apart, revealing her snow-white, delicate shoulders and her seductive, jade-like collarbones. At first, Yun Shirshir still struggled. However, the man was really anxious, not allowing her to resist. He lifted her body up. She was so thin that the man's strong arm could support her steadily. From now on, he was the master of the world. His large palm brushed past. She continued to play with him. Yun Shirshir's delicate brows furrowed slightly. In the blink of an eye, everything was under his control. Muyaja hurriedly penetrated her in this position. In the bathroom, there was a scene that made people blush and their hearts beat faster. After a long time, Yun Shirshir was exhausted. He was so tired that he couldn't even move a finger. She allowed the man to put her into the bathtub. At this point, she couldn't help but sigh at how luxurious this ward was. The bathtub was wide and deep. It was big enough for two people to enter completely. Muyaja squeezed a few drops of essential oil into the bathtub. After a while, the large bathroom was filled with a fragrance. Chapter 850. He turned on the shower and allowed the warm water to splash on their bodies. He hugged her and planted a deep kiss on her forehead. Clearly, he was craving the taste of her kiss. After a round of lovemaking, their bodies were covered in a layer of sweat. Gradually, the rising water in the bathtub covered both of them, submerging their bodies in the water. They instantly felt very comfortable. Yun Shirshir was like a lazy cat, comfortably nestled in his arms and fiddled with his hands. How beautiful! Every finger was fair and slender, with distinct joints. It was so beautiful that it put people to shame. This pair of hands should be the hands of an outstanding pianist. They were like exquisitely carved jade bones. In fact, Muyaja had indeed practiced piano and violin since he was young. Yun Shirshir admired every finger of his, and then reached out her hand to hold his palm tightly. His fingers were much longer than hers. Compared to his, her hands were small and tender. He could wrap both of them with one hand. Her lips curled slightly as she slowly intertwined her hand with his. Then their fingers intertwined and locked together. Muyaja held her hand tightly and wrapped his arms around her shoulders from behind, locking her in his embrace. How he wished that time could stop here. At least such an embrace could become eternal. He longed for her fragrance and warmth. Hugging her, no matter how chaotic his heart was, it settled down instantly. It was only at this moment that he realized that his love for this woman had reached the point where he could not control himself. He had always been a man with a strong desire to be in control. No matter what, he wanted to be in control of the situation. He did not like the feeling of being controlled, no matter how big or small. He wanted to be the master of everything. However, he seemed to lose his sense of propriety every time he was in front of this woman. It turned out that he had already reached such a stage for her. He still remembered that day when Yun Tianyu asked him righteously, "Do you like my mommy?" He thought that he could give a perfect answer to this question now. Love. It was not liking, but love. Liking someone was a joy at first sight, but love was hard to separate. At first, he didn't understand. What was love? What did marriage mean? As a result, he felt at a loss. But now, he had found the answer from this woman. She had undoubtedly become his weak spot, his reverse scale. One had to know that with his status, He shouldn't be overly concerned about anything or anyone. It was easy to be threatened by the enemy. His current position was high and lonely. If there were any burdens, they would undoubtedly become his burden. However, towards her, he was willing to shoulder it. Love, Yun Shirshir didn't hear him clearly at first. She asked him in surprise, "What did you just say?" "Nothing." Muyaja's thin lips slightly hooked, pinched her chin, and kissed her lips. Yun Shirshir raised her head and responded to the kiss. Just as she stuck out her delicate tongue, it was accurately captured by him. He gently bit the tip of her tongue. It was tender, just like a top-notch delicacy. His hands began to wander around her body. It was obvious that he was not satisfied with what he had just done. Chapter 851. Every time he touched her, she would feel a sense of extreme sensitivity. Every time his slender fingers brushed past, clusters of flames would be ignited. She couldn't stop trembling in his arms. The temperature in the bathroom suddenly rose. The water vapor filled the air, so much so that she felt like she was going to suffocate under his lingering kiss. He wanted to go deeper, but she quickly stopped him. The man looked confused and asked, "Why? You don't want to?" "Why are you so energetic?" Yun Shirshir complained. "Spare me, I can't take it anymore." Muyaja raised his eyebrows and suddenly smiled wickedly. He stared at her little face with a mischievous gaze and let out an ambiguous breath. "You can't take it anymore? It seems like you should train harder." He only wanted her once, and she said she couldn't take it anymore. This woman should strengthen her physical strength. He didn't mind exercising more with her. The ambiguity in the man's words was obvious. She didn't know if it was because of the temperature of the water or because of his overly mischievous words, but her face became even hotter. "Stop fooling around. Who asked you to be so seductive?" Muyaja pushed the blame to her under his big palm's caress. She was like a budding flower, blooming under his body little by little. Muyaja sat her on top of him. Most of the time, he liked to admire the shy and seductive look on this little woman's face when they were in love. It was very seductive. Yun Shirshir was so embarrassed that she wanted to die. She wriggled and struggled several times, but it had the opposite effect and made him even more unable to control himself. He had always liked to take the initiative. Therefore, if he wanted, could she escape? Therefore, in this vast world, he once again possessed her. Charming and gentle, a wave of heat swept through. The rising temperature also made the two people immersed in it climb to the peak of brilliance. When Yun Shirshir was once again pressed under his body, in a position that would cause people to have wild and fanciful thoughts, she could not help thinking angrily, "This is really a very vile man." After she gave in, she was completely powerless to move. She lay limp under his body and let the warm water submerge her. After flirting with her, even when she opened her eyes, she looked extremely lazy. The seductive look on her face was extremely seductive. He was still full of energy and looked like he wouldn't restrain himself even if he fought for a few more rounds. However, she was completely out of strength. She might as well just end it like this. She weakly nestled in his arms, allowing him to clean her body. He took the shampoo and rubbed it on her head, washing it carefully for her. It seemed that this was not the first time he had served someone. However, she was the only one who could make him lower himself to serve her. However, this was his first time washing someone's hair. He had never treated Xiaoi Chen so seriously before. Although she had just recovered from her illness, Yun Shirshir's head still hurt faintly. Therefore, he deliberately massaged the acupuncture points on her head. The massage was just right, making her so comfortable that she couldn't help but relax her brows. "It's so comfortable." Yun Shirshir couldn't help but smile. She was obviously enjoying it very much. Mu Yaja couldn't help but laugh. This little woman knew how to enjoy herself. After that, he helped her clean the bubbles on her body and took a towel to wipe her. Chapter 852. After wiping her clean, he even helped her put on her clothes. Yun sure couldn't help but have an illusion. It was as if she was the Honorable Empress Dowager, and the rumored great executive officer Mu, who was swift and decisive with a wave of his hand, had turned into a loyal and devoted servant. Thinking of this, she was amused by her own thoughts and couldn't help but laugh out loud. Mu Yaja gently scratched her nose. "Stupid woman, what are you laughing at?" "Nothing." Yun Shirshir quickly stopped laughing. She couldn't let him know what she was thinking. Otherwise, he would torture her to death. Mu Yaja glanced at her. From her mischievous gaze, he didn't need to think much to know that she was probably cursing something again. He smiled and couldn't help but peck her cheek. He couldn't help but chide her in his heart. This little woman, who made people love and hate her. There was a hairdryer in the bathroom, so he carried her in his arms and dried her hair strand by strand. Yun Shirshir was secretly happy. This man usually looked cold, arrogant, and unapproachable, but most of the time, in front of her, he was very patient. Her heart was filled with emotions. Such special treatment made her feel extremely satisfied. He carried her all the way back to the bed. Yun Shirshir quickly asked, "When can I be discharged?" "You want to be discharged?" Mu Yaja glanced at her. Yun Shirshir nodded vigorously. "Yes, of course I want to. After lying in the hospital for 2 days, I'm going to rot. If I continue lying down, I feel that my limbs are going to degenerate. Your fever has just subsided. Stay for another night." "No." Yun Shirshir acted coquettishly and hugged his arm. She said softly, "Take me home, okay? I don't want to stay in the hospital anymore." This sentence of "take me home" directly hit the softest part of his heart. Mu Yaja couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. In an instant, he was surrounded by endless warmth. "Go home." His thin lips lifted slightly, and he couldn't help but smile. "Okay, I'll take you home." "Yes." Thus, Mu Yaja got up and went to handle the discharge procedures for her. Mu Group's private hospital was located in the city center, where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. Therefore, the surrounding area was surrounded by bustling shopping malls. Xiao Yichen and Yu Yu walked out of the hospital. With him leading the way, the two little lads walked towards the city center. Along the way, Yu Yu walked at the front, while Xiao Yichen followed behind him. From time to time, he would sneak a peek at Yu Yu's handsome little face. He seemed to be in a good mood today. At least, it was rare to see his usual cold expression on his face. It was probably because Yun Shirshir's fever had subsided that his mood improved. "Yu Yu!" Xiao Yichen called out from behind. Yu Yu smiled and turned around. "What's up?" Seeing the smile on his face, Xiao Yichen couldn't help but smile as well. "Why are you walking so fast?" "You're walking too slowly," Yu Yu said as he turned around and walked forward. However, it seemed that his footsteps had slowed down. Xiao Yichen caught up with him and walked side by side with him. Xiao Yichen lowered his head and saw his little hand moving along the hem of his shirt. Suddenly, he said, "Yu Yu, What now?" You looked a little annoyed. "Can I hold your hand?" Xiao Yichen asked carefully. There was a shy look on his face. Yu Yu was stunned and immediately rejected him. "No." Chapter 853. Why? Can't we hold hands and walk together? Xiao Yichen shouted indignantly. "It feels weird." You said in a muffled voice, but there was a look of disdain on his face. Xiao Yichen was a little confused. What's weird about it? Yu glanced at him, but did not say anything. They were both boys. Why should they hold hands? Boys still had to hold hands, which made him feel strange. Hold hands, hold hands, hold hands. Xiao Yichen saw that he did not say anything and started to act coquettishly. Yu said angrily, Mu Yichen, stop fooling around. Xiao Yichen was unhappy. He held his hurt heart and said softly, I'm not fooling around. I just want to hold your hand. Yu said coldly, Are you a pervert? You're the pervert, Xiao Yichen shouted and moved closer. Hold hands. No. Hold hands. Yu was silent. He could not help but feel a headache coming on. This kid had learned how to act coquettishly. He did not know who he had learned this from, but he did not know who was the first one to act coquettishly. Would he fall for it? It was impossible. Hence, Yu ignored him and walked forward. However, he did not know who had taught Xiao Yichen. Yu refused to hold hands. Would it really work? Hence, without further ado, little Yichen caught up with him and held his soft, fleshy paw without a word. Startled, Yu tried to pull his hand out of his father's grasp. Xiao Yichen held on tightly. The more he struggled, the tighter he held on. Yu was impatient and said coldly, Mu Yichen, let go. No, if you don't, I'll bite you. He could be shameless, but he could also be unreasonable. Xiao Yichen wasn't afraid at all. He taunted, I won't let go even if you bite me. Back then, when they were high up in the sky on the Ferris wheel, he had held onto her hand tightly, even when it was on the verge of dislocation. Even at the very last moment, he had refused to let go. Even if he was bitten, he wouldn't let go. She just wanted to hold his hand. Yu saw the determination on his face and gave up struggling. Biting him was just to scare him. But this kid wasn't scared at all. This was inevitable. He had been training in the special forces since he was young and had experienced all kinds of things. Naturally, he was not afraid of anything. Xiao Yichen got what he wanted. He held his hand tightly and walked side by side with him. His hand was a size bigger than Yu's, so naturally he was able to hold Yu's little paws in his palm. His hand was so soft, Xiao Yichen couldn't help but pinch his palm. He had a ragdoll cat in the Mu residence. When he was bored, he liked to hold the cat in his arms and pinch its paws. However, Yu's little hand felt better than the cat's paws. It was warm, soft, and extremely cute. Yu's palms, on the other hand, were sensitive and ticklish. Seeing him pinch them, they shrank back a little. Thus, she glared at him, hinting at him to stop before he went too far. Letting him hold her little hand was already a big concession from him. Xiao Yichen understood the warning in his eyes and stopped pinching him. You, what do you want to eat? I don't know. Let's walk around and see. He didn't know what he wanted to eat. Now that he was starving, he wasn't as hungry as he was in the hospital.